motivates and induces criticism, because every event has a context.
Pusimos el punto en la I.
Dotting the I. Saturdays. Only on TeleSUR.
The life is full of moments. Moments of fight. Moments of hope. Moments that transcend. Moments that you can live in. TeleSUR documentaries. Sundays. Only on TeleSUR. TeleSUR English presents a weekly program to discuss the political, economic and social issues affecting the Caribbean community. We'll challenge stereotypes and impact the diversity of the region through the analysis of unique cultures, religions and art. We Caribbean. Wednesdays. Only on TeleSUR.
Healthy news of TeleSUR. Today in our central theme, we will talk about Cuba, a Caribbean country blocked by the United States more than half a century ago. The country is searched for alternatives to ensure their health of majority and implement its universal health system became a reference by medical brigades traveling to the world to the countries that need it most. Remember our email quietucuerpo@telesur.net. Now let's do our usual informative tour this week. Big journal The Lancet questions the use of hydrochloroquine to treat COVID-19. This drug used in January to fight malaria is used in some countries as Brazil against coronavirus. The use of this treatment has scientific divided because some don't recommend their use in cases of COVID-19. WHO members called for the temporary disconnection of clinical trial with hydrochloroquine, which until now it is the most widely employed treatment to combat coronavirus.
To the Secretariat, to the Executive Group, and to the DSMC, a decision was made to stop the randomization with the hydroxychloroquine trial on the basis of two pieces of information. The first, the data that was published by the UK trial, and second, the data that was available to us from the Solidarity trial.
Faced with this scientific disagreement, the governments of Italy, Egypt, Tunisia, and El Salvador suspended the use of the molecule to COVID-19 suffered. In the other Eastern countries such as Brazil, the United States, Algeria, Morocco, and Senegal had liked the use of the molecule with still supplying in the population. The controversy caused by the use of this drug has led to the suspension of multiple clinical trials. In Mexico City, a team of medical brigades applied COVID-19 tests from house to house. Health personnel advanced through the slough using biosecurity implements to avoid being infected or infecting the population. The execution of these beans when people by telephone messages state their request to the local authorities. Subsequently, there is a filter at the breeders in which we continue channel the patient, determine their symptomatology. We attend to house the sample of cyanosorprin and parinel are then taken to the appropriate laboratory for testing. After that, the medical team moved to the community door to door for testing. This process takes about 5 minutes in each of the people who manifest the symptom of the virus. Sometimes the welcome is not pleasant, as the neighbors are frightened. However, there are people who believe that it's better for the medical team to go to their homes so they can discard to the coronavirus. Visits are usually repaired, and in some cases, the medical brigades attain up to 5 or 6 times. In case of the positive, to follow up is done by phone or video call and then assist the people with possible case of COVID-19. The World Health Organization is optimistic about studies for British research following the effect of medicines or medicine to reduce the mortality of the COVID-19 patients.
According to early findings shared with WHO, for patients on oxygen alone, the treatment was shown to reduce mortality by about 1/5. And for patients requiring a ventilator, mortality was reduced by about 1/3. However, dexamethasone was shown to not have a beneficial effect for those with milder diseases who did not need respiratory support.
Revealed that the testosterone, known as the steroid of a drug that has shown significant result on good preparation in COVID-19 patients. The world is trying to get to normal, as in Arabia they reopened public places and shopping malls by continuous with restrictions throughout the territory. To prevent contagion measures are maintained. According to the country's Ministry of the Health, cases has a large increase and there is greater number of deaths by COVID-19. These cases are attributed to the indisciplined behavior of the population and the premature lifting of measures. Flexibility doesn't minimize the risk of the contagion. The minister called on his territory to maintain the necessary measures to prevent the virus. The mayor of Bogotá, Claudia Lopez, declared orange alert for the increase in the number in serious patients, already occupying more than half of being available in the intensive care unit in hospital in the Colombia capital. Among the measures involved in this alert is its administration and regulation of public and private uses to restrict the use of the rooms. Many patients find themselves alone and isolated waiting to be admitted to the intensive care units of some health center, particularly in hospital where make it difficult to access. Meanwhile, patients decay and worsen by not having access to assisted respiratory and lack adequate treatment to combat COVID-19. Here is alone. He is isolated, and they said, I am isolated in a room, but I think he is safer here. Staying off, be moved to a place where there may be more infected people, and he no longer have the defense to bear it. The collapse of Bogotá said health centers require at least 120 new funds to prevent the collapse of hospitals. We will help to Cuba, a Caribbean country that in the middle of the 20th century impressed the whole world with its great passion and its unbeatable quest for independence. The Global Health Organization continues to worry about the rapid growth of the COVID-19 epidemic. The global landscape continues to overslave the strengths of the political models that govern the government of each country.
The pandemic is still accelerating. It took more than 3 months for the first 1 million cases to be reported. The last 1 million cases were reported in just 8 days. But we know the pandemic is so much more than a health crisis. It's an economic crisis, a social crisis, and in many countries, a political crisis. Its effects will be felt for decades.
The epidemic has brought to light the weakness and institutional problems around the world. Europe faced a sudden outbreak for which it was not prepared. In North America, American political philosophy continues to promote social inequality and prioritize entrepreneurs' profit, bringing more problems than solutions. In other hands, there are China, Cuba, and a small island in the Caribbean which support doctors to the whole world to fight the epidemic.
extraordinary Chinese-African solidarity against COVID-19 is our concrete step in the fulfilling the commitment we make and to do our part in international cooperation against COVID-19. I am convinced that humanity will finally defeat the virus and that the Chinese and African peoples are prepared to accept better days ahead. Got there, we actually found a completely crowded hospital with patients even in the corridors of the guard courts, virtually all the patients with assisted breathing, a huge number of deceased, ambulance constantly passing, and the isolated streets.
In early June, warmly welcome to the brigade doctors who risked their life in the countries most affected by the coronavirus epidemic, thus expressing the Caribbean island willingness to be not only a Babylon alive but an example of solidarity for international community.
We knew how to do it, we did it well, and we saved lives. Without health controls, vitality, physical protection has been much greater even than with Ebola, but I do not see it as a medical mission. It is our work and it is our concept as doctors, as Cubans, and as internationalists.
The spirit of COVID-19 has the scientific community under pressure and recently in the search for a cure for the virus. However, for this to be reality functional, it takes time to thoroughly investigate and verify its ineffectiveness of the possible drug. In this context of COVID-19, the Caribbean island implement the use of the green medicine as one of the preventive methods against the new coronavirus.
Europe at the moment, it multiplied by 3 practically the sale of natural products because they are much safer products, much more safe, much easier to acquire, and people use them with more tranquility and more security. There is the using of a product that has ginger and curcuma in Cuba. We add the argemu and the orange and has really given results to make people feel safer and much more strengthened to face any kind of health problem.
To ensure the health of the population requires the renewable and acquiringly healthy lifestyles, new eating habits, and physical and mental activity. The Cuban National Health System applies all knowledge of natural tradition or alternative medicine to strengthen this approach. One of these initiatives is the Apothecary of the Grandma, a laboratory located in the municipality of Smooth, west of Havana, where they use medicinal plants as a basis for the treatment of respiratory, digestive, renal condition, among others.
I've been buying here a long time. I'm a customer here and I've been seeing quite few results because it's very effective on respiratory issues when it comes to expecting a cold. I really like to use the copal, which is very good. I recommend it for anyone in the family. It's very good.
Use products from the 16 biological farms of the medicinal plants to develop products that in the middle of the pandemic, even if they don't mean a cure for the COVID-19, they combat the respiratory condition of this disease.
The moment in a situation like this where there is a health problem that fundamentally attacks the respiratory system, if you use certain medicinal plants that have a proven scientific value, improves or strengthens the respiratory system, and any health problems that you may suffer, you will face it with much more quality and safety in that sense. Cannot say with this I cured the COVID or with this I cured the cancer or me with a natural product I cured a disease. Is that practically we can't cure anything. You have to do a complement of actions, a union of hygienic preventive actions, sanitary drugs to solve a health problem. Happens with high blood pressure, with cancer, with diabetes, happens with everything. With a product, just do not solve the problem. Where is the role of natural medicine today? Is in prevention. I was telling you, it is an extremely aggressive disease, an extremely unknown disease, so we have to know the weaknesses and opportunities that it gives us to attack. Today, natural and traditional medicine plays a fundamental role in prevention.
Since 1977, the Global Health Organization has recognized the value of the natural medicine that account for more than 20% of the global pharmaceutical market. In Cuba, the Office of the World Health Organization maintains collaboration projects that facilitate scientific research on this topic. The Cuban Minister of the Health Alternative Medicine is a priority in his work, and by 2020 is achieving the development of the 25 millions natural products and promoting research in this branch of medicine. Go to Venezuela, where the national government continues to open the door to Venezuelans who return as the country fled by the coronavirus, xenophobia, and discrimination.
Ambulance transports a family of Venezuelans with COVID-19. They are going back to their country from Ecuador in a flight ordered by the government for those who want to go back. They have all the security measures for them and for the health personnel. To go back because this pandemic hit us hard worldwide. Now we have no job nor a house. It got hard for us, so we decided to go back to our country. When you have a job, you can do anything, but without a job and without any relative to help us, it's really hard.
It's harder for us here. The pandemic is stronger than in Venezuela. There is dead people on the street and the pandemic is growing.
Whole family, including 3 children, is well received in this isolation center in La Guaira State, just an hour from Caracas. They face a complication because one of their members has recovered, so they have to stay isolated to avoid new contagion. I think it's better to be in my country with my family, with my children. I feel safer. There we have no one to help us, but here we have our family. Here anyone can help us, I'm sure about it. Venezuela faces the increase in its COVID-19 figures, the result of the so-called imported cases, people returning by land or across the country's air various borders and representing 80% of the total cases. At borders, health checks and compulsory quarantine are strengthened, and in isolation centers such as these, they receive medical observation and screening. Taking care of the patients who come, both national or community, and are people who are more accessible to acquire the virus. They are cared for, compensated in case they have their pathology or the compensated basis. They are supported with the drug, they are followed up daily. Every morning I take a tour visiting the patients identified with a certain pathology. Calls to return to the country are repeated. If you are going through discrimination, xenophobia or lack of medical care, you can come back. However, you will have to comply the isolation and quarantine measures. This isolation is because of security measures. It is understood because we do not want to infect our families. That is an act of heroism because when they receive ourselves, knowing that we are carriers of that virus, it is hard. For the Venezuelans, because the brothers who are here, those who have remained here all the time, it's hard. I understand the concern of the brothers who are here, but they should understand us too. It is our necessity. Once recovered, they are helped to return to their home states and maintain COVID prevention measures. Lionel Retamal Muñoz, TeleSUR, Caracas, Venezuela.
To the end of the Healthy TeleSUR program, we say goodbye to today. Remember, you can contact us through our digital platform, www.telesur.net, and write to us on our email, yetucuerpo@telesur.net. See you next week.
Sonriendo entre los feroces arquitectos de zarpazos,
señal que no pierde el paso, amplificando otras voces.
Las voces desobedientes, mestizas de ese salobre, indio, campesino y pobre, más humano que clientes.
Semiótica que entra al juego desde la piel del sufrido. Júbilo que bajo fuego más se yergue convencido. Ni sudaca con espuelas,
ni parlante mal nacido.
Negativas verdaderas ante el falso positivo.
La espada de Bolívar otra vez se alzó. Se levanta nuestra voz. Soy como tú eres como yo. Se levanta nuestra voz. Norte, hacia sur, nuestro sur, tu corazón. Se levanta nuestra voz. Entérate, despiértate. Nuestra voz. Las plazas con las abuelas se van llanto de cenizas, deshielos que van deprisa, glaciares de viejas penas.
Continente de maíz, de quinoa, soya y arroz, curándose el hambre atroz que anclaron en su raíz.
Caravana de migrantes corrigiendo con los pies los geométricos sangrantes cálculos de Hernán Cortés. Periodismo compañero del estudiante sangrando, ojos que siguen mirando de frente al carabinero. Y ven los 7 colores del agua y pala. Se levanta nuestra voz. La hierba buena, la hierba mala. Se levanta nuestra voz. Se perdona todo, pero no se olvida nada. Nuestra voz, nuestra voz. La escuela de Bolívar otra vez se alzó. Se levanta nuestra voz. Soy como tú eres como yo. Se levanta nuestra voz. Norte, hacia sur, nuestro sur, tu corazón. Se levanta nuestra voz. Despiértate, entérate. Nuestra voz. A voz se levanta e canta na dança passada por nós quando ainda criança, ciranda dos povos, na ginga dos corpos. Palafitas, mocambos, quilombos, favelas. O povo resiste na tardia, na falsa abolição. Todas as penetas dos oprimidos pela colonização. Povo de luta nas trincheiras da nova guerra social. De acabouca, vive na mata, busca alimento pra alma. Fazendo a caça, acertando a flecha na cega.
Sépase que la verdad hay que saber defenderla o nos vuelven a estafar con cristales y linternas.
Manipulación mediática, maltratando las conciencias, por si el lucro no descansa, pues que nuestro amor no duerma.
Otro punto de vista, las venas abiertas del continente.
Compromiso con la vida, somos señal insurgente, donde lo vilipendiado se descubre por valiente. Compromiso con la vida, somos señal insurgente. La escuela de Bolívar otra vez se alzó. Compromiso con la vida, somos señal insurgente. El dolor de un continente, intenso, largo, profundo, Dios lo anida en nuestro vientre para que renazca el mundo.
Follow our programming minute by minute. Our signal in audio format is now also available on our website. Get the latest updated facts and news emerging around the world from a Latin American reliable angle. TeleSUR, connecting the global south.
Una batalla como la que ustedes van a librar, como la que va a librar este ejército armado de lápices y de cartillas, no se ha librado nunca.
Por eso era especialmente hermoso, ¿no? Darse cuenta de que lo que uno estaba haciendo era una ayuda, ¿no? Que era una ayuda a la gente, que era muy necesario.
Follow the most important global events through a comprehensive perspective. With a team of journalists in 25 locations around the world to convey our people's reality. From the South. Weekdays. Only on TeleSUR.
Who's moving the chessmen? What interests and motivate the actors behind each event? The board is deployed there. Critical Move investigates every event from Monday to Friday. Only on TeleSUR.
The Pakistani journalist Tariq Ali examines the mass media influence promoted by imperialism. Get access to the analysis of the socio-economic and political life of the whole South America on our screen and platform in English. A critical place committed to the truth to determine the major events that transform the world today. Mondays. Only on TeleSUR.
Innovation, science, the technological breakthrough and its influence in society.
Viajeros del saber, el futuro está aquí.
Atomum. Monday, only on TeleSUR.
In a world infested by inequalities, abuse of power, and injustice, the American journalist Abby Martin covers the struggle for fundamental rights worldwide, deepening into the search of files which uncover the empire's strategies through our screen and web platform in English. The Empire Files with Abby Martin. Tuesday, only on TeleSUR.
为了保持身体健康，我冥想。
Para mantenerme saludable, yo corro.
To keep myself healthy, I study.
Για να διατηρηθώ υγιής, τρέφομαι σωστά.
Para mantenerme saludable, yo bailo.
Para mantenerme saludable, yo purifico mi espíritu a través del cuerpo. ¿Y tú?
Got your body. Tuesdays, only on TeleSUR.
Aquí estoy frente a los muros, libre de hablar realidades, de celebrar mis conjuros, de cantar nuestras verdades. Vengo de todas las madres con hijos nunca encontrados. Soy el sueño de mi padre, el de un continente alzado. Yo vine a mostrar los rostros, a nombrarme en tus palabras, para sabernos nosotros, para que el camino abra, a decir lo necesario, de pie junto a mis hermanos, señalar a los contrarios, alzando en puños las manos. Celebro la justa hora de no bajar la mirada, de buscar allí en la aurora nuestra historia liberada. TeleSUR, 15 años al aire, libres.
Acompañamos a los pueblos que resisten en cada una de sus luchas.
Somos esa ventana que se abre para visibilizarlos entre fronteras.
Thursdays, only on TeleSUR.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Sean todos muy bienvenidos a Vidas. Hay lugares donde el arte se unifica con el orgullo de los pueblos. Y esos lugares están llenos de colores, alegría, pasión, tradiciones, arraigo, valor y entrega.
Real Life. Fridays. Only on TeleSUR.
A review of the world news that investigates, incites analysis, and induces criticism, because every event has a context.
Pusimos el punto en la I.
Dot in the I. Saturdays, only on TeleSUR.
The life is full of moments. Moments of fight. Moments of hope. Moments that transcend. TeleSUR documentaries. Sundays. Only on TeleSUR.
Since 2012, the Defense Action Program for Childhood Arrival has protected many young undocumented immigrants in the United States for deportation, but in 2017, the Donald Trump administration halted the plan, prompting uncertainty in thousands of people. Now the Supreme Court has blocked Trump's attempt to suspend the DACA program, with one remains in place.
In the United States, the Supreme Court has decided to end an executive order from President Donald Trump that takes a step back to policies against dreamers, mostly children who arrived with their parents in the United States mainly in the 90s and who were the invisible ones. In 2012, the Barack Obama administration decided to launch the DACA program that sought to protect these people, mainly to get them out of invisibility. It is estimated that more than 700,000 people, mostly children who arrived with their parents, are in the United States in an irregular situation. The elimination of this executive order of Donald Trump allows a step for the struggle of migrants that, although with the DACA did not allow them to have a full citizenship, if it is guaranteed some basic access such as education, being able to access public education or even to university education, a reality that today we bring you in between borders.
Following the U.S. Supreme Court ruling, immigrants who are part of the Defenders Action Program for Childhood Arrival will maintain deportation protection and authorization to obtain work permits.
Madam President, I cried tears of joy a few minutes ago when I heard the decision of the Supreme Court on DACA. These wonderful DACA kids and their families have a huge burden lifted off their shoulders. They don't have to worry about being deported. They can do their jobs, and I do believe this, someday soon, they will be American citizens.
The jurist rejects the arguments that the program was illegal and said the Trump's administration didn't take appropriate steps to end DACA. The program covers people who had resided in the United States since were children but remained without legal immigration documents in the country. In some cases, these people have no memory of any households other than the United States. Antonio Alarcón, works in the planning fed and beneficiary of the program, analyzed the usement.
A huge victory for the immigrant movement. I think we were not expecting that. I mean, Obviously, we know that the court is conservative, but I think at the end of the day, the pressure from the audience, the pressure from the community stood out, and I think Roberts made the right decision on voting in favor of DACA. Under the DACA program, there's around 700,000 dreamers, but we know that there's 2 million undocumented students who could potentially qualify for this program. So we still need to fight for those dreamers who haven't applied, and due to the decision today, we're hoping that more dreamers can qualify for the program.
Migrants who are part of this program has resided in the United States for many years. They entered the country together with their parents and were sent to live with other relatives there. Another of the Trump executive order Playfin recounted the difficulty he faced during the suspension of the program.
I didn't get a driver's license. I couldn't even work on the summer youth programs, and I'm like, how come I don't work? And that's when I found out that I was undocumented, that my parents had brought me here to the United States to have an education. And ever since then, I just try to do my best, be the best in school, try to, be the A student, so I could prove people that, the sacrifice that my parents did to bring me here wasn't in vain. Want something more inclusive for our parents and our community, because at the end of the day, they also pay taxes. They they contribute to the economy, and I feel like it's fair. It's time, something happens for them, and we're gonna keep fighting, But luckily for now, with DACA Save, and home is here, like we said, my shirt says, home is here.
On his Twitter account, President Donald Trump expressed his rejection of the Supreme Court's decision, calling it horrible. On September 2017, President Trump has implemented an executive order to stop the DACA programs. He argued that the NSA was unconstitutional, also denied the work of thousands of Americans by allowing foreigners to take those jobs. Since then, the beneficiaries of the DACA program have been illegal left in the country.
I'm here today to announce that the program known as DACA that was effectuated under the Obama administration is being rescinded. The DACA program was implemented in 2012 and essentially provided a legal status for recipients for a renewable 2-year term, work authorization, and other benefits, including participation in the Social Security program to 800,000 mostly adult illegals. The effect of this unilateral executive amnesty, among other things, contributed to a surge of minors at the southern border that yielded terrible humanitarian consequences. It also denied jobs to hundreds of thousands of Americans by allowing those same illegal aliens to take those jobs.
With the suspension of the DACA in 2007, thousands of people took the streets of major cities in the United States to demonstrate against the executive order. The program protected migrants who was entering the country before 2007, which meant they had been living in the country for at least 10 years.
Today I found out I can't renew my DACA. It sucks. I work at a school, I help kids. I can't do that anymore. Pretty shitty. I don't like it. My parents worked really hard to bring me out here.
It's human to feel that emotion, to be scared. But you also, people are starting to bring that scariness, that angerness, and taking into action, into positive action. We're not staying quiet. We're not staying silent. We're raising up our voices, and we're letting Trump know and his team that we're going to continue fighting for immigrants.
Despite the strong criticism of the suspending of the program, the White House spokesman defended the president's decision by arguing that law and order shall be respected.
It's not cold-hearted for the president to uphold the law. We are a nation of law and order. And the day that we start to ignore the fact that we are that, then we throw away everything that gives these people a reason to want to come to our country.
Although the Trump order in 2017 was been repealed by the Supreme Court and described as arbitrary and capricious, experts explain that the decision leaves the door open in case the government wants to enforce a new rule against the beneficiaries of the program.
Today, we got a good decision by the Supreme Court. The court decided to stand on the right side of history and allow 700,000 young people to continue to live their lives, to continue to live their dreams, and to continue to make America what it already is thanks to immigrants.
So, in theory, the Trump administration, if they wanted, the Supreme Court told them that they can terminate DACA with a more detailed explanation following the Administrative Procedure Act. So it's important to keep monitoring the situation, to keep fighting, to keep demanding a path to citizenship for Dreamers because it's not over. We still have to keep.
Today we are here to celebrate with great joy that DACA will remain as we continue to stand in solidarity with Black Lives Matter and our shared efforts to defund the police. The police forces that are out here abusing their power, taking the lives of our community members, are the same ones separating our families and deporting them. I'm talking about 287G, which invites police departments to collaborate with ICE. And they place holds on us, and they move us into detention centers, whether we have DACA or not.
This court ruling occurs just as the United States is going through one of the worst social crises in its history because of institutional racism that has systematically segregated both the African descent community and immigrants in general. In social movements, struggle intersect and converge in order to strengthen each other in face of a common adversity.
So far, the DACA program will remain in place in the United States, so the Supreme Court decided to end all boycott projects carried out by the US government of Donald Trump administration. Although DACA does not allow the citizenship that is practically favored by this regulation to be fully entitled, the truth is that it allows and prevents them from being deported. Deported because mostly of the beneficiaries of this regulation are children who came with their parents to the United States, who grew up in this country, who arrived as kids, and who speak English. Today we bring the story of Carlos Vargas. He is one of those children who grew up, who was educated, and who works in the United States, and who also decided to engage in a legal battle to stop that executive order of Donald Trump. Today, the Supreme Court has given him reason, and we have him exclusively here in Between Borders.
Carlos is denouncing the U.S. government of Donald Trump for trying to president over the DACA programs. Now the Supreme Court gave you reason. Is this victory for the entire collective?
As we know, the last Thursday, the Supreme Court, which is the highest court in the United States, decided in our favor, and what it means for me personally is that I don't need to have that weight thinking that maybe migration is going to knock on my door to start a process of exclusion from the country. That for me, I see it is a victory because I see that our community fights this administration and we won. On the legal side, I think the judge saw the program if it is legal, and they saw that the president didn't really have the right to finish the program as he did.
Sure, Carlos, but how that this whole light suite process been?
It was done in 2017. The president, in short, ended the program, said that the program was illegal, and then a few weeks ago, several states, as New York, demanded the administration and said this program is legal and should continue. Several states like Texas, here in the United States, which is a little more conservative, said the program should finish. Then that caused the courts in the United States to have two different point of views. The Supreme Court in November said we're going to hear this argument to decide in which side to take this case. For me personally, I was one of the plaintiffs in the state of New York. That for me it was something that I had to be part as a legal student, as a member of the locality, and I said, no, we will take this fight on the streets with our politicians, but also in the courts.
Of course, as you said, who would confront the government of the United States? How was that moment, that process in which a person sues a state?
Yes, I was totally excited, but it was also very risky. In the legal data says Carlos Vargas against the President of the United States. That is something exciting, but it's also something that can give me consequences. Nothing has happened, but for example, there will be the possibility to say, okay, let's make an example to these people who are demanding this administration. We're going to show that if you, a group, people who are in the country without authorization, we're going to start a process to expel you, detain it, or take you to a detention center. That is, the detention could make an example for us.
Carlos, for people who are watching us and who don't know what the DACA program is, tell us a little bit what means for all the people who can host them to this program.
Well, the DACA program is a program created in 2012 under the President Obama, who basically gave protection against deportation to people who had entered the United States before the age of 16. The program gives us the right to apply for a 2-year work permit and deportation protection. When many people applied, including myself, we gave private information. We gave our anti-immigration or direction, and when we applied, the government basically verifies that Carlos Vargas has no serious criminal actions. He has nothing to prevent him for getting his work permit. We will all this information and instead give us a work permit and protection against deportation. And we can live in the United States without the fear of having contact with migration and having a sure deportation start. With the work permit, we can apply for a driver license. We can work in many careers we have studied. For example, I study economy, and in law school, for me, when I graduated from school, I can work in that area that I studied. Yes, I definitely think that every person who has a case with migration in the United States, they give themselves as a foreign number, a number that is a code. With that code, we can write our lives here with a type of status without fear. If someone asks us for an ID, we don't have to show our passport. If someone wants to hire us, but without that number, we cannot live our lives to exercise that dream.
Carlos, once this program has been announced and is going to continue at least for now, what's going to happen now?
Now we see in the short term that we're still fighting. Currently, the agency that processes DACA applications have said that currently they are not going to accept them, although the Supreme Court has ordered them to accept them. Let's see that there is a fight here, but in long term, DACA was always a temporary thing. We know that DACA was something for like 2 years. What we need is something permanent. As we dreamers says, the United States is our home. Here we think as Americans, we dream as Americans, and we are Americans in every detail but on paper. Applicants will fight to have something more permanent, but also not only for the young DACA who are studied, but for our community that is in this country.
While the United States is also becoming today one of those scenarios where people also come out to claim their rights. We have seen it with Afro-descendant people and also the Hispanics people. How is this whole coexisting being right now in the United States?
We think that here in the United States, as the authority, as the police, an agency that forces the immigration laws that are called ICE, is almost like we're in the same struggle in one part. That means that many of those migration officers separate those families. We have seen that at the borders, people who have entered the United States have been killed or abducted. No longer by people but by agencies that must protect the laws. We support the Black Lives Movement that exists and we see that our cause is similar. We are fighting to rid our community. The more than 700,000 people who benefit from this DACA regulation have congratulated the Supreme Court's decision, and the truth is that although this project is going to continue at the moment, the truth is that the President Donald Trump can file another lawsuit against this decision and even introduce new executive rules to end a rule that aims to protect these dreamers. The dreamers, more than 700,000 people, mostly children who came to the United States and who celebrate this decision. However, the migrant collective continues to call for urgent regularizations for people who are migrated in the United States. They are asking for it and insisting that it must be the guarantee for that citizenship that came to the United States to carry out essential work that in many cases has favored the lives of American citizens. We come to an end of this program. We invite you to stay in tune with us and see you next time in the next edition of Between Borders.
Una travesía para descubrirnos. Buscamos conexiones perdidas.
No nos queda otra que luchar, porque no tenemos nada que perder.
Realmente es por todos.
Recorremos el mundo con Reportajes TeleSUR.
And finally, the door will open.
Reportajes TeleSUR.
The life is full of moments. Moments of fight. Moments of hope. Moments that transcend. Moments that you can live in. TeleSUR documentaries. Sundays. Only on TeleSUR.
You're watching TeleSUR English. I am Doris Polo. These are the headlines at this hour. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is in Colombia for an official visit. Pompeo met with President Ivan Duque early on Saturday, hours after his arrival. This latest tour started in South America on Thursday when he visited Suriname and Guyana. He then traveled to Brazil before heading to Colombia. The president of Peru survived an impeachment vote late on Friday. Martin Vizcarra was accused by members of Congress of inciting aides to lie to anti-graft investigators. This in turn led to the impeachment proceedings. After a 10-hour debate, only 32 legislators voted for his dismissal, while 78 voted against and 15 abstained.
We have put aside all the people who are in bad financial situation, who have businesses collapsing and debts for medical clinics, and who have health problems. We have put them aside for 8 days because of everything that has happened this week and because of what we have done as authorities. What we have to do from now is to resume the work based on an agenda in favor of the people.
Guatemalan President Alejandro Giammattei has tested positive for COVID-19. In revealing the news, Giammattei said he would continue his work from home while self-isolating. He also ordered all members of his cabinet and the Vice President, Guillermo Castillo, to be tested for the virus. Thousands have taken to the streets of Thailand's capital, Bangkok, demanding political reforms. The protesters have been taking to the streets since July, calling for the resignation of Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha and a complete overhaul of the government.
Now we are fighting with so-called dictatorship government that claim themselves to be democratic, and we actually see that is not true. So we want the reform, the political reform.
2 people have died and 1 is missing after Hurricane Ianos swept over western Greece. Emergency workers are also searching for a boat carrying 55 migrants in the Mediterranean Sea after it sent a distress signal due to the storm. The storm also affected Greece's western islands, resulting in flights and other transport services being cancelled. And those are the headlines at this hour. For these and more stories, visit our website, telesurenglish.net.
Creation is a very complicated exercise. Sometimes it's a moment of introspection, sometimes a vehicle to express what the artist carries inside. It's a way to communicate. Jason Chang and Darren Ovias work together and create together with all the implications that 2 minds working on one piece have. They call themselves the Peripathetics after these philosophical currents. Jason and Darian has a degree of arts in the Cuban Superior Arts Institute, and they have been working together since they were students. Now, they just presented some of their work in the Havana Biennale.
Tell me, how does
About the Peripathetics, the contemporary art and the culture in Cuba, we talk with Jason Chang today in From Havana.
Well, Jason, thank you so much to accept this interview. You are part of this Havana Biennale now, but you're not alone in your work.
I am a duet. I have a personal friend and a companion that works with me. Her name is Diane Ovias. She is another artist. And yes, we are a duo and we are called Peripatéticos.
Why peripatéticos?
Well, we decided to call ourselves peripatetics because we like to do our work walking. Everyday life is the basically philosophy we use to create art. In our opinion, we believe that art can be any particular thing of an artist's life. It means conversation with your friends, or the time you spend doing normal, ordinary things, or working in your workshop. We decide that if we make art in every moment of our life, if we think art can be a vital part of everything we do, then we are doing art all the time. So it's basically quite similar to the philosophy they use in the peripatetic school from Socrates, that they decide to make philosophy walking and talking. So it was kind of very interesting for us, the term, so we decided to apply it. Better we make it our term. So now when you talk about peripatetic in visual art, it's more related to what the work we do. But anyway, it is applied to the kind of the way we make art, or the way we decide to make art for us.
So it's a decision.
Yes, it is a decision.
And how come you can, two different minds, how come you can get in the same stream of creation when people think in different ways and you both do the same thing? How can you work together as an artist?
I think it's a matter of empathy, because Darian has a very quiet character. She's a very quiet person, and I'm very annoying person, so we make a perfect complement. So when I'm very stressed, she said, calm down, we do this way, and when she's too passive, I say, okay, come on, we need to do it more aggressive. So I think we start working 5 years now. We start working since 5 years ago. In one day we were talking about art, drinking coffee in our rooms in the residence, and then we say, well, we should do something with this. It should be more than just talking. So we start to record all our conversations. So we have a big record of all the things we do in 5 years. Anyway, we have always been together in everything. We are friends. We are companions in school. We studied together here in the Faculty of Visual Arts, so it was easy for us to work together. We have the same space in our workshop in the cupolas, so our process were very related. She has ideas, I had ideas, not equal ideas. It's something interesting too, because each part gives a different perspective.
Of course.
And that's quite interesting, because it's not monothematic all the time. It's not, I want to talk about this, how can you do it the same?
You meet in the middle always.
Exactly. So she has a point of view, I have my point of view, and what we do usually is try to put it together all confronted, which is quite interesting too, because we always have different results. And I think that's why we have this kind of process of work. We don't have a finished masterpiece. We have a process that is always building itself, and one side has one of our visions and the other one has Darian's vision, which is, it's not always the same.
What's the word you recall the best from your student period together?
Well, we started working in the last Biennale. It was the first time we present a work together.
As a student at that time?
As a student at that time, yeah. And then when we decided to finish school in ISA, we make a thesis investigation and we make it together. And it was quite good because first we make a very, very interesting research about contemporary art in Cuba. And we make a book, an artist book, what we call a photographic essay. And then we make a garage sale, which was an event to make socialized artwork in a very chic way. And we make the performance in this space where we are having the interview now. And I think, in my opinion, I don't know if Darian is the same, but my favorite piece was the the photographic essay for the fireplaces.
That is that one.
That one we have here, yeah, exactly. And for me, it's a beautiful piece because in art, or artists, sometimes we say it's a circular piece of art. Okay. You know, it's perfect in every way you see it. You don't need to explain it, you don't need to present it, because she can do it by herself.
That's the ideal.
Exactly. So it was a very, very hard work between us. I was in Germany and she was here in Cuba, and we tried to make our efforts together all the time to create the book, and at the end we have a very fine result. It's a very interesting research. So in my opinion, the best one is the 25 places in Havana.
Really quick, you went to Germany to study.
Yeah.
And how was this experience?
Well, it's a very different context. Europe, it's quite different from Latin America, but it was very good for the research too, because in our work we talk about the differences between the artistic production in Latin America and how our creation is very delimited by process, and how art, especially from Latin America, it's very determined by the concept where we are creating. So to actually meet, I mean, the reference of art that you have in your mind as an artist is the Occidental art. Yes. Always is the biggest reference you have. So you go there, you go to the museums, you see the European artists that were called the artists of the world for a very long time. And then you say, okay, this is European art, now I know better what I do, and I know what is the difference between what I do and this. And you came back more clear about these concepts.
Tell me, how does the public react to your work?
It's quite interesting.
Is that's the reaction you were expecting from the public always, or there's so many interpretations? Or you seek for one in specific?
Not always we expect a specific reaction, because we know the art we do is complicated. So it's not what you understand as conventional art. If you come to one of my exhibitions, or Daria, or a work we make together, is not always expecting to find things hanging on the walls, you know? So it's complicated.
She was explaining that to me.
Yeah, exactly. So not always you expect people react in a normal way.
Okay.
Because usually sometimes people ask you, so what we should do here? Or what are you expecting the people do with your work? We have a specific way of working. It's very peripatetic in the meaning that we always try that when you come to the space where we are working, we don't like to work in galleries. If you check many of the work we do, you're gonna notice that it's not working white galleries. This space actually is not an official gallery at all. It's very alternative spaces. We like to work in alternative spaces, and an alternative space gives a lot of options to people react to art. Because if you go to a place that is not institutional, you're expecting to find something different.
Yes, of course.
So yeah, we like to always, with very much respect to the people that come to our places, to be a little bit cynic and sometimes a little bit jokers. But yeah, we always try to create different situations, not the normal ones.
So you are used to break the norm, and so sort of
we like to do it.
So at what point an object can be considered art? At what extent?
Well, there was a famous artist called Marcel Duchamp that say that the simple selection of the object for the artist became this in art. Of course, this completely changed the idea of art that we have, especially for the 20th century. So if you consider that, since the pop art from here, in the artist world, many things could be considered art. It's a complicated concept because it's not meaning that anything you can find can be considered art. But if an artist that comes from an artistic institution, is the way it works, decides to use normal, ordinary objects to create his speech, yeah, maybe that can be considered art. But it's actually the decision of the artist who determines the result of the artist's piece.
In that line, you told me that you made a garage sale, a garden sale, to fight, not fight, but maybe critique in some way the market and the way art is worth. So how do you rate the worth of an artistic piece? How does that work?
Well, that's an interesting question too. We don't know. You never know. What can be considered valuable in art or not, or more valuable than other things, it's a matter of merchants and institutions.
So the artist doesn't decide that?
No. You can put a price on the things, or the work you do, but I don't think any artist creates something thinking how much is going to sell it. Actually, that part always comes from the critics and the creators. They always put the prices. The thing about the market now is that it becomes a very powerful thing inside the art institution. Almost like they can determine the validation of the status of an artist. And because now we are living in a very interesting era for art. We are assisting a moment never seen before. You have social media, you have internet, you have mass media, you have a lot of things now that are working next to you, and as an artist it's quite complicated to present it and validate your art, and it's a problem too for the institution. So to determine how much can worth something, it's quite complicated, because you can find people selling art in any place of the world very, very expensive. And you can even question how good is that thing they are selling.
Yes.
And then you can find very interesting productions of artistic work that you can find it free on the streets. So the market, it's an interesting topic. But what we do with the garage sale, it was a good result, because we decided to take all our work, all our hanging walls work, yes, you know, our paintings, our draws, our pictures, to sell it.
I wasn't there. I would like to be there.
Yeah, you could buy a lot of things very cheap. But the idea was to finish with all that. And it meant like a catharsis process. So yeah, we finished with all this. We decided to put it here and sell it very cheap, because for us it doesn't have to be that expensive.
Of course.
It's that everybody could have our work. And then we start to make other different kind of work, maybe not that commercial. But the idea of a garage sale was that. And maybe it's a little bit like making this question to the institution about if I sell cheap, how much are you going to charge me for it, right? Anyway.
If you have to make a definition on your words, what's contemporary art?
Ooh, what is contemporary art? I think now a lot of things can consider contemporary art. As an artist, you can do whatever you want. That's my concept. I always think that if you want to be honest with your process, you need to do what you like to do. It doesn't matter if the institution, the school, or the gallery says, I want this kind of art. If you want to be a truly sincere and compromised artist, you have to do what you think you need to do, what you like to do, and most of all, the thing that you actually believe that is art. And if you think art can be a performance or a production, I don't know, or make agriculture in some way, if you think that can have an artistic intention, then you should defend it as it. It doesn't matter other concept.
So the function of contemporary art will be what?
Well, art is important in modern life, contemporary life, because as all the time in history, we always make a parameter of, it could be like a definition of society. If you want to study a process in time, I don't know, in history, you can see it by studying the artists of that period. Because most of the time, the artists make a reflection of everyday society. So art, most of all, it's a fit for the soul of people. Because the artistic expression is always trying to tell people, most of all, it's like a teaching, or we could say it's a way to say how people should live their lives in the most free way possible. But I believe it's important we keep the artistic production always as an important part of society, and people have access to art. I don't believe art should be just for closest scenarios, like just for intelligent or educated people. Or I believe art should be for everybody and should be the access. I like a lot the communitary artistic work. I think in the most minimal community should be an artistic expression, because it's important that people have interaction with the art. If you don't, then you have just, I think that's what make us different from animals. You know,
sharing?
Yeah, no, I think the aspect that we have, that we are sensitive to the beauty, is what makes us different from animals, and that is art.
Yeah, logic is sensitive because they love, you know, the shining thing, but we can appreciate the work behind it, the way you do it. Yeah, I think I'm agree with what you're saying.
So I believe if we make art part of our everyday life, as we decide to do as Peripathetics, it's a way to maintain the soul open to the beauty of life and many perspectives. That's what I think it's important.
The work of what artists do you appreciate the most? Do you follow the most?
Well, as a reference in our work, especially for our thesis research, we use a lot of TeleSUR, which is a Latin American artist, very important, and also we have a very good influence of Etrushka. It was an American photographer that used to make photographic essays like the one we make with the fireplaces. In the Cuban contest, of course, is Lázaro Saavedra, which is a very interesting artist. And most close of all is Luis Gomez art, because he was our professor, our mentor, our tutor. So we are very related to his artistic production. It's very related to the topics we use in our work. So maybe Luis is a big reference for us in the artistic Cuban contest.
You were talking a little bit earlier that art should be for everyone.
Yeah.
What do you think would be the move to achieve that?
Well, the university is a big thing for that. As a cultural institution, ISA is always trying to create bounds to the community, to other institutions, not cultural institutions, to reflect the work of the young artists in society. But I think education is important, because how people is going to understand that art is valuable for their life is if they don't know it, or if they don't have access to it. So the Bienal is a good space for that, because I think the Bienal brings art to the community, to the city, so everybody can be involved in the artistic process of many international artists, not just the Cubans. And more events like this, and more of the world of the cultural institutions, not just the university. We have a big Minister of Culture in Cuba with a lot of institutions. It's the best way to take the art to the public. If you don't show it, if nobody sees it, it's not happening, or it doesn't exist.
Well, you're not alone. We were talking about in the beginning. I know she doesn't speak English, but I think she's an important part of the creational process. Of I think she would be there, and people should know. People should. You want to sit there?
Sit here.
She's an important part.
Yeah, she is. We've been, like I said before, we've been friends, and we are always working together. It's a very good duet we have here, very fruitful, because we find out that our perspective of art were good combined together. So yeah, it's.
I have a question. I'm a journalist, and I write. Sometimes I don't like that an editor or people touch what I write.
Yeah.
So, but I understand I have to let go sometimes, because it's for the good of the work. How do you feel as an artist, or how an artist feels when he or she has to let go a piece or to a gallery, or he give it away? How do you feel? Because for me, that's part of my being, and let it go and not see it any time again. That's hard.
Well,
how do you deal with that?
Yeah.
Even when your work is not that not for collections and stuff, but Commercial, yes.
Well, if we like the art we do, it's complicated. Yeah, indeed. But well, we took decisions. For example, for the book, we make one copy only. And many people say, why don't you make an edition so we can have a lot of them? And we decided, no, this makes it unique. So in our exhibition, somebody tried to buy it, but we decided we don't want to sell it. So we keep it for ourselves. We show it in places where we decide to put it. But yeah, we decide not to sell. Sometimes the work it's about to show it, to socialize it, but it's not about to sell it. But sometimes you need to let it go, because in the garage sale we sell a lot of things. For 5 years in ISA, all our paintings, our drawings, our pictures, our videos, we sell a lot. Maybe 5 years of work, it was a lot, in very cheap way. But it was fine for us because we were doing art, selling that art. So it was kind of a process inside another process.
Very
and art, yeah,
very
exactly.
pathetic. Jacob,
Yeah, well, that was the idea. Basically, idea was to create art doing other things, like selling, like being your own marchand, your own galleries, your own curator. Yes. So it's something we are trying to promote a lot. Like this exhibition, for example, the artists we work here, we decide to make our own curator work, our own process of montagne. We make it every day.
That's not common. That's not
no,
very
usually
common.
in the Biennale, many artists try to use representative or famous curators to do their work because it's good representation, but we decide to do it ourselves. In our opinion, as artists, who better than us to talk about our process and to analyze our work? So that's give us a little bit more independent for the work. So if you decide to sell or not to sell, if you decide to use your work for something or give it like a present, like something you just want to give to someone, if it's an intention behind that, if you can make art from that, for us, it's fine.
So what's up with you guys after the Biennale? What's coming next for you?
Well, we never know.
So you didn't have a
no.
project in mind or
well,
working process?
Well, we usually, the first time we make a project for the thesis because we have to do it, but we usually are talking and we say, this is something we should do. Because if you force it, then it's not very pathetic. It's the way we work. But anyway, we are planning to make an exhibition in the next month, maybe in July.
Okay.
Because we want to make the photo book, we want to make printed pictures with that. So
in bigger scale.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So we want to present our completely research in an exhibition, but it's going to be not an exhibition.
It's going to be here in Cuba.
Yeah, it's going to be here in Cuba. It's going to be a show research, is how we call it. Yeah, we invent concepts for everything we do.
That's art. That's also art to create.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you so much, both of you, for this opportunity.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure and an honor to learn from you guys.
For us too. Thank you very much.
September 19, 1983. Declaration of Independence of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Follow our latest updates concerning the novel coronavirus by checking our special content in our website, where you will be able to get the most reliable details and numbers for each continent, available from your mobile device or desktop. TeleSUR, connecting the Global South.
In a world affected by inequalities, abuse of power, and injustice. The American journalist Abby Martin covers the struggle for fundamental rights worldwide. Deepen into the search of files which uncover the empire's strategies through our screen and web platform in English. The Empire Files with Abby Martin. Tuesday, only on TeleSUR.
The U.S. Secretary of State has met with the Colombian president. The Venezuelan government condemns an allegedly biased human rights report. And Libya could see a prompt restart of oil production.
Under certain conditions and with...
Hello and welcome to TeleSUR. I'm Doris Polo in Quito, Ecuador, and this is from the South. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is in Colombia for an official visit. Pompeo met with President Ivan Duque at the presidential palace to discuss topics including the situation in Venezuela and the supposed war on drugs being led by the Colombian government. Meanwhile, the Venezuelan government has denounced Pompeo's LATAM tour as part of an ongoing strategy to destabilize the nation. Pompeo's latest tour started in South America on Thursday when he visited Suriname and Guyana. He then traveled to Brazil before heading to Colombia. And on Friday, protesters in Brazil gathered to demonstrate against the visit of the U.S. Secretary of State. Protesters mobilized in front of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, calling Pompeo's meeting with Venezuelan migrants a cynical move. Meanwhile, Workers' Party President Gleisi Hoffmann pointed out that the administration of President Jair Bolsonaro has once again shown its submission to the policies of the United States. Well, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro also denounced the attempts made by U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo to conspire with neighboring governments to attack the Bolivarian Republic.
Mike Pompeo is on a warmongering tour against Venezuela, but it has backfired on him. Mike Pompeo has failed in all his attempts to align the governments of the continent in a war against Venezuela. Mike Pompeo is calling for a war against Venezuela, but he has failed. He has failed, and the Bolivarian National Militia and our people and our Bolivarian armed forces must be increasingly ready, better prepared to defend peace, territorial integrity, and the right of our nation to development. The battered, macabre terrorist, coup-plotting right wing and the U.S. government have activated orders and plans to seriously restore the peace in Venezuela. I denounce this to the world. In the next few days, as we always do, we will present conclusive evidence. So, 4,512,000 militiamen and militia women, listen up, be alert, 1,000 eyes.
President Maduro also announced that conclusive evidence against the detained U.S. spy and his work would soon be made available.
To act as we have acted, we have recently captured, I have to say it today, a gringo spy. There they are. I don't know if they have shown the evidence. A member of the CIA, a gringo spy, member of the CIA. He is convicted and has confessed, and we captured him with all the evidence of espionage activities, to sabotage the refineries of the country, to sabotage electrical targets. He had participated in the Iraq War, and he was under the CIA command in Iraq. And how did we capture him? Following information from SP3, from the people. From the people, that's how we captured him.
Staying in Venezuela, the Bolivarian government recently denounced that accusations of human rights abuses are being used as a means to question the credibility of the upcoming parliamentary elections.
This week, a human rights report sponsored by the Lima Group was published. The organization of right-wing government slanderers of the Venezuelan Revolution promoted this report, which is being called a ghost document. filled with inaccuracies and mistakes. Caracas rejected this report while validating its joint work with the Office of the High Commissioner of Human Rights, with whom it collaborates regularly.
This document lacks of credibility, and it is an act of propaganda against our country, and we will respond to it with the law, with justice. In Venezuela, whoever violates human rights will be condemned, punished, and the public ministry has proved it will do so. There are people condemned, investigated, prosecuted.
Analysts think that this report is written and published within the framework of the political and economic pressure plan against Venezuela, aiming at the December parliamentary elections through a strategy of international coercion.
The problem of this report is that it seems more than clear the purpose of using it as a legal excuse under the United Nations jurisdiction to initiate criminal actions against the Venezuelan leadership. It is not the first attempt. Its credibility is questionable.
The facts show that this report will be used as a trigger to strengthen the strategy of the United States and the OAS, which is seeking to sabotage the parliamentary elections due to the failure of the opposition sectors that gather around Guaidó. That's how the purpose is crystal clear. The U.S. interests are actively working to discredit the poll in December.
More and more countries know the fragility of the elections of the National Assembly, scheduled by Maduro for December 6th of this year, will be no fair nor free.
Sectors of the opposition and Chavismo called the European Union to accompany the process. However, the bloc insists that Venezuela change its legal instances.
Strong support from ICG minister to continue working for a negotiated political solution for Venezuela crisis. The celebration of free and fair elections is key. Only mere change to the conditions and the schedule could allow the deployment of an EU electoral observation mission.
As in other occasions of Pulseo International, a bloc that supports the self-determination of Venezuela with China, Russia, and other allied governments, is configured.
These elections must be respected and supported by the international community. The government of China always supports and will continue to support the efforts of the government and the opposition of Venezuela to resolve the difference through dialogues and consultations.
The maximum pressure strategy announced by the United States includes various destabilization formulations and is preceded by the November U.S. presidential election.
This period before the elections is a very dangerous time when we can expect political pressures, economic pressures, increased psychological warfare, and also military operations, all regular and irregular, against the Bolivarian revolution.
Internally, the different political sectors already registered with the National Electoral Council have said that the elections will be held inevitably on next December 6. Leonel Retamal Muñoz, TeleSUR, Caracas, Venezuela.
With that, we'll take a short break now. Don't go away.
Aquí estoy frente a los muros, libre de hablar realidades, de celebrar mis conjuros, de cantar nuestras verdades. Vengo de todas las madres con hijos nunca encontrados. Soy el sueño de mi padre, el de un continente alzado. Yo vine a mostrar los rostros, a nombrarme en tus palabras, para sabernos nosotros, para que el camino abra, a decir lo necesario, de pie junto a mis hermanos, señalar a los contrarios, alzando en puños las manos. Celebro la justa hora de no bajar la mirada, de buscar allí en la aurora nuestra historia liberada. TeleSUR, 15 años al aire, libres.
Follow our program minute by minute. Our signal in audio format is now also available on our website. Get the latest updated facts and news emerging around the world from a Latin American reliable angle. TeleSUR, connecting the global south.
Welcome back. Bolivia's de facto president, Janine Áñez, pulled out from the October elections earlier this week in hopes of giving the right wing a boost against the movement towards Socialism Party. We have more in the following report.
After the publishing of a latest poll to show that the movement towards Socialism Party is well on its way to win a first-round victory during October's elections, the de facto president removed her name from the race.
I am setting aside my candidacy for president in order to safeguard democracy. This is not a sacrifice, it's an honor. I do this despite the risk it could further split the vote and lead to a mass victory in October.
The candidate said to benefit the most from the decision is Carlos Mesa, who has remained in second place in most polls. The right wing hopes to strengthen his platform, hoping to force a run of votes.
We salute the president's decision to drop out of the race. We believe this will allow any of our potential voters to place their hopes on a candidate that has a chance to beat the left wing.
But the leading party has said this strategy is doomed to fail.
De ninguna manera nos afecta ni nos beneficia, ¿no?
This doesn't affect us, nor does it benefit us. It's simply a decision they took.
There are shortages everywhere, of fuel, of medicine, of food. There are protests nationwide against price hikes. There are too many topics that the right has left by the wayside.
The Electoral Court has said they have not yet received any official document in regards to Áñez's withdrawal. As such, the question remains on whether only Áñez is dropping out or if her entire alliance is disbanding.
Political parties had the chance to substitute a candidate until September 3. After that date passed, a candidate may drop out, but the parties they represented cannot nominate a new candidate.
But the Juntos alliance has clarified they will remain in the race. With Áñez's exit, the right wing is down to 6 candidates to face off against Luis Arce, the candidate for the MAS party.
The president of Peru survived an impeachment vote late on Friday. Martín Vizcarra was accused by members of Congress of inciting aides to lie to anti-graft investigators. This in turn led to the impeachment proceedings. After a 10-hour debate, only 32 legislators voted for his dismissal, while 78 voted against and 15 abstained.
All the people who are in bad financial situation, who have businesses collapsing and debts for medical clinics, and who have health problems, we have put them aside for 8 days because of everything that has happened this week and because of what we have done as authorities. What we have to do from now is to resume the work based on an agenda in favor of the people.
Guatemalan President Alejandro Giammattei has tested positive for COVID-19. In revealing the news, Giammattei said he would continue his work from home while self-isolating. He also ordered all members of his cabinet and the Vice President, Guillermo Castillo, to be tested for the virus. Meanwhile, the Minister of Culture also contracted the novel coronavirus. Guatemala has so far reported over 83,000 COVID-19 cases and more than 3,000 deaths. Staying in Latin America, a recent report on human rights violations in Colombia shows that female social leaders face greater danger than most others, as they are often the target of murder, sexual violence, and forced displacement.
Between 2013 and 2019, over 1,300 violent attacks were recorded against women social leaders, and 84 of them were killed, while over 1,000 received threats. These numbers were reported by an NGO, which also says this highlights structural violence in the country.
We are seeing an increase in social-political violence against those who defend human rights, particularly in the case of women. Women are also stigmatized in the territories, and as a consequence, it leads to violence and human rights violations.
The risk for them is greater due to their gender, race, and ethnicity. They face threats, homicides, sexual violence, and forced displacement.
To be a social leader to me means suffering in my own skin, the physical and emotional aggressions. We live in fear. We don't know what will happen to our children if we are not here tomorrow.
This report is being presented at a time when the defense of human rights is costing many Colombians their lives, and at a time when numerous violations of human rights have been recorded at the hands of the police.
They pulled me off the motorcycle by my hair. They started to electrocute me then, with the TeleSUR. They took all of my belongings, my cell phone too. They then locked me in a cell with 11 men.
The outlook continues to be uncertain, as impunity remains in place. In 7 years, there have only been 4 convictions for the hundreds of homicides, while a majority of cases remain in the investigation phase.
Turning our attention to Africa, Libyan military leader Khalifa Haftar has agreed to lift the months-long blockade on oil fields and ports, which were under the control of the Libyan National Army.
We have decided to resume oil production and exports under certain conditions and with necessary measures that will guarantee a fair distribution of revenues and that they will not be used to support terrorism.
South African health authorities reported over 2,000 new COVID-19 cases on Friday, taking the total number to over 657,000. The Minister of Health noted that the number of COVID-19 tests conducted has surpassed 4 million, placing South Africa first on the continent as it relates to testing. Meanwhile, 85 people have died from the novel coronavirus in one day, pushing the cumulative number of fatalities to over 15,800. The nation ranks 9th in the world in terms of the total number of coronavirus cases confirmed. Hundreds of people gathered in Morocco's capital Rabat on Friday to protest against the normalization of ties between Israel, the United Arab Emirates, and Bahrain.
This event, organized by Moroccan coalitions in support of the Palestinian people, is there to affirm the position of the Moroccan people on all the agreements of betrayal and normalization that the Emirates and Bahrain have concluded. From this place, in front of the Moroccan parliament, we send a letter of support to the Palestinian people, a letter of attachment to the freedom of Al-Aqsa and Jerusalem. And the most shouted slogan I have heard today is, Moroccans will never forget Al-Aqsa and Jerusalem. We are here to remind the Moroccan state and the whole world that we consider that the Palestinian cause is also ours, and we have made sacrifices, and Moroccans have given their lives for the Palestinian cause.
Similar protests also took place in the Bahraini capital, Manama. Participants in the demonstration carried banners condemning the normalization of ties with Israel and in support of the Palestinian cause. Bahrain is the second Gulf country to normalize its ties with Israel in less than a month, following the UAE. Iranian health authorities confirmed over 2,800 new COVID-19 cases on Friday, taking the total number of cases to over 400,000. Ministry of Health spokeswoman Seema Lari also reported 176 new COVID-19 related deaths, pushing fatalities to more than 23,000. Meanwhile, the number of people who have fully recovered stands at over 350,000, while more than 38,000 patients are in a critical condition. We have more stories coming up. Stay with us.
Follow our program minute by minute. Our signal in audio format is now also available on our website. Get the latest updated facts and news emerging around the world from a Latin American reliable angle. TeleSUR, connecting the global south. Innovation, science, the technological breakthrough and its influence in society.
Viajeros del saber, el futuro está aquí.
Ataman. Monday, only on TeleSUR. Who's moving the chessmen? What interests and motivate the actors behind each event? The board is deployed there. Critical move. Investigates every event from Monday to Friday. Only on TeleSUR.
Welcome back. Thousands took to the streets of Thailand's Bangkok demanding political reforms. The protesters have been taking to the streets since July, calling for the resignation of Prime Minister Prayuth Chan-o-cha and a complete overhaul of the government. The demonstrators defied a ban on public gatherings due to the COVID-19 pandemic. They are also calling for fresh elections and a new constitution.
Now we are fighting with so-called dictatorship government that claim themselves to be democratic, and we actually see that is not true. So we want the reform, the political reform.
2 people have died and 1 is missing after Hurricane Ianos swept over western Greece. Emergency workers are also searching for a boat carrying 55 migrants in the Mediterranean Sea after it sent a distress signal due to the storm. Hundreds of people have been evacuated from their houses in some parts of the capital, Athens. The storm also affected Greece's western islands, resulting in flights and other transport services being cancelled. Following an official visit to the Czech Republic on Friday, the Greek foreign minister called for dialogue with Turkish authorities to resolve the current tension over oil drilling activities in the eastern Mediterranean.
We believe that a dialogue should start and that international law should not be violated. Of course, in this area, no one should try to prevail by force. Greece is always open to a dialogue with Turkey regarding coastal waters in the exclusive economic zone, provided that Turkey stops its provocative acts in the area.
Meanwhile, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has also expressed his government's willingness to enter into a political dialogue to address the situation in the eastern Mediterranean.
We have no problem on the issue of meeting Mitsotakis, but what we will discuss, under which framework will the discussion take place, that is important. As long as there is goodwill, we are ready to meet, whether it's in third countries or via video conference. There would be no question of us evading discussions. However, if the Greek president goes to the island and engages in a show of force, then we would display an even greater show of force.
Dozens of tourist guides staged a peaceful protest behind Paris' Notre Dame Cathedral to call on the French government for financial aid. They lamented that nearly half of the city's tour guides have been unable to work and urgently need financial assistance. The coronavirus pandemic has negatively impacted the country's tourism industry due to travel restrictions and lockdowns imposed to halt the spread of the virus. Earlier this month, facing a resurgence in infections, France's government unveiled a €100 billion recovery plan aimed at creating jobs, saving struggling businesses, and pulling the country out of its worst economic slump since World War II.
Some of the profession are independent, which means they have access to a solidarity fund. That's good until December. But the big problem is we need urgent financial aid for those who have zero income now, and that is to say about 41% of the profession. There's about 200 of us here today, and non-stop since June we've been demonstrating. We've written letters, we have no reply, so we're trying to attract the attention of the government to help these people, and to at least call this year null and void, and that this year is written off, and that people can again apply for unemployment benefit until the work comes back next year, because it won't come back until next year. So we need really money to survive until next year.
over to the United States. New York City school teachers have demonstrated against the reopening of schools. The teachers are against in-person classes due to resume in the next few weeks, fearing this could result in the rapid spread of the COVID-19 virus. City authorities have insisted that schools can reopen safely and have assured that safety measures shall be put in place to prevent the spread of the viral respiratory illness.
Until there's a plan, I'm not walking into no school building. If there's a job offer where I can do it remotely, then I'm fine. I keep my son safe. I keep my mom, who is of age, safe. That plays a factor as well. If my son goes back to his school, I don't know if his schools are going to follow the right protocol. And then it's like, I don't know what my job may expect of me.
U.S. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the second woman to be appointed to the Supreme Court, passed away at the age of 87 in Washington, D.C. on Friday. Judge Ginsburg was appointed to the legislative body by President Bill Clinton in 1993, where she served for more than 27 years. She was known as an advocate for women's rights and for the passage of the Equal Rights Amendment. Her death, while still serving on the court, has created a rare election year opportunity for President Donald Trump to nominate a Republican replacement, which he announced today he intends to do. And with that, we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. For our viewers in Africa, remember you can find us on StarSat Channel 461 in South Africa and Channel 539 in Nigeria. And join us on social media for TeleSUR English. I am Doris Polo. Thank you for watching.
September 19, 1983. Declaration of Independence of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Quetzals in the sky. So here they are, my child, the wings of the Quetzal calling the sun, and brings light to the world so peoples can be reborn. Grandma's memory talking to us all the time about a world that was dying in order to bloom again. And it caught us by surprise, like a kiss in the morning star. So is death and life, and so fragile in the progress. It acknowledges your pain, shouting everywhere. So is the pain of a birth, so is to change from the inside. Let's look at the sun straight ahead, with the eyes in our chest, in order for our soul to grow and the fruit may be good. See, my child, that the night was not only salt and fear, that in order to become stronger, we had to go through this. And even though you may not acknowledge it and think that we don't see it, the light of a beautiful sun is not hidden. If it would only be your case, if only you would be wind, if only you would be humble, so everything is done. Tomorrow you will be a grandmother, invoke at the bright star. You will be the phrase that flies and crosses over all fear. The hope in this world are Quetzals in the sky.
Acompañamos a los pueblos que resisten en cada una de sus luchas.
Somos esa ventana que se abre para visibilizarlos entre fronteras.
Thursdays, only on TeleSUR.
Who's moving the chess man? What interests and motivate the actors behind each event? The board is deployed there. Critical move. Investigates every event from Monday to Friday. Only on TeleSUR.
Greetings, travelers of knowledge. Welcome to Atom, program of science and technology of TeleSUR. I am Jack Bravo. It's a pleasure to meet with you. Remember that you can follow us on our social networks like Facebook, Atom on TeleSUR, on Twitter as @Atom on TeleSUR, and you can also follow my social network in Twitter. Now join me in reviewing the techno-scientific log that we prepare for you on this journey. Let's see. Chapter of Atom, our cognitive block, leads us to delve into some implications regarding the measurements of power between Washington and Silicon Valley, but more specifically in the battle of Trump and Twitter, a new canati within the tycoon's fairly complex relationship with the digital platform of the Bluebird. But who puts the bell on the cat of the so-called freedom of expression on social media? A question that we will highlight in this episode of Atomon. The president of Brazil, Jair Bolsonaro, continues his policy of neglecting and trivializing the pandemic by COVID-19, the scientific community of the South American giant remains alert and does not abandon his effort to seek mechanisms of attention to his compatriots. So scientists from the state of Sao Paulo are developing rapid and inexpensive tests with a view to expanding the ability to diagnose COVID-19. It's a screening test that uses innovative technology which has not been done anywhere in the world. We have even filed a patent. The advantage of this technology is that every time the sequencing machine is used, 1.536 exams can be carried out at once. The accuracy of the test is 100%, combined with offering not only an economic advantage because its price will be around $45 per unit. Due to the impossibility of making face-to-face visits, the product of the pandemic by COVID-19 in some hospitals in Mexico City have implemented the use of technology, more specifically of devices such as tablets and cell phones to give certainty, a closeness, even virtual to patients through video calls with their relatives. Video calls are a communication strategy that is subject to the ability of several factors, including the patients being able to speak without intubation and without being sedated, as well as that there are unoccupied medical personnel and have time to manipulate the phone, and that calls are scheduled and handled. Initially, a team of researchers developed tools to scan infections such as COVID-19 with the help of artificial intelligence. It is a resource implemented in the manner of scanning by a multidisciplinary team of teachers and engineering students of the National Institute of Applied Science and Technology of the African country, who deploy devices used to scan lung X-ray and assess whether patients are likely to suffer from COVID-19, all through a virtual platform that allows diagnosis to be obtained. In the Republic of China, the virtual reality industry has endured a series of swings typical of market behaviors, yet technological advancements in this field on the rise of the Asian giant. In the last 10 years, the computer capabilities of China and the hardware equipment of the industry have developed exponentially, and what at one time seemed like a dream has become a reality. Hence, experts expect the virtual reality industry to grow even more in China. American entrepreneurs have developed a hot mixing asphalt technology which tends to cool and harden quickly within haul trucks and during the paving process, reducing paving temperatures by to up 100 degrees, while at the same time facilitating application and meeting the required technical specifications. The modern pavement has already been successfully tested on the airport runway on North Base Island, a territory of 700 hectares on the coast of Ohio, which maintain a single essential runways for its inhabitants. Promoters of a modern technology aspire that this type of paving can be used in runway projects, taxiways, and airport platforms around the world. Nancy Drew, Midnight in Salem. If you like adventure games and horror narrative, then we invite you to join a new chapter of the Nancy Drew saga, who in this occasion decided to truly investigate the mystery of Salem, a city of the north coast of Massachusetts, north of Boston in the United States, and which is famous for the witchcraft trials of the year 1692, in which several locals were executed for the alleged practice of witchcraft. Drew's investigation has a point of view the arson of the Hawthorne estate, originally built by Judge John Hawthorne, inquisitor of the infamous trials of Salem witches. Nancy's convictions are put to the test and, of course, yours, in a race against time to decipher various issues before midnight. For example, whether ghosts are real, whether the dark story of Salem has come to life, or there is someone else to blame. Make America Great Again was the Trump campaign harangue to mark what for him is the political, economic, social, and cultural course of the United States. The application of this idea not only brought the resimmerment of psychopolitics and the use of technology through algorithms and platforms of digital social networks used to position speeches with supposedly democratic ting, but also a dialect loaded with high neoliberal content typical of the new scenarios of transnational territory where corporations try to set the new direction and world order. But Trump's belligerent discourse and his love relationship hatred with technological feudal have been accentuated in times of pandemic, opted for the tycoon's re-election claims. This time the new bid between Trump and Twitter lies between what he sees censorship of freedom of expression and control of content monopolized by the technological feudals of Silicon Valley and its business structure often uncomfortable for their interest of the presiding tycoon. On May 28 of this year, when Trump decided to sign the executive order to make changes to Section 230 of the federal law, known as the Communication Decency Law, which offered immunity to Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Google to protect them from any illegal action related to content posted by third parties, in addition to giving him freedom to intervene on the platforms. The trigger in the controversy with Twitter is that the company hid a Trump tweet because it contains violates the rules of the social network of glorified violence.
We're here today to defend free speech from one of the gravest dangers it has faced in American history, frankly. And a small handful of powerful social media monopolies controls a vast portion of all public and private communications in the United States and had unchecked power to censor, restrict, edit, shape, hide, alter virtually any form of communication between private citizens or large public audiences. The choices that Twitter makes when it chooses to suppress, edit, blacklist, shadow, ban are editorial decisions, pure and simple. They're editorial decisions. What they choose to fact check and what they choose to ignore or even promote is nothing more than a political activism. Can't let it happen. Can't let it happen. Otherwise, we're not going to have a democracy. We're not going to have anything to do with a republic.
What are the most relevant aspects immersed in this drop-changing legal instrument, given the alleged threat to democracy by Silicon Valley monopolies? As the American representative emphasizes, here is the significance of this legal instrument. Section 230 of the Act of Decency in Communications dates back in 1996. Is considered a historical piece of Internet law by the United States, grants immunity from liability to providers and users of an interactive computer service that publish information provided by third-party users. To be offered these immunity benefits, it is due to tend to these three parameters. 1. The defendant must be a supplier or user of an interactive computer service. The cause of action asserted by the applicant must be treat the accused as the publisher or speaker of the harmful information in question. 3. The information must be provided by another information content provider. It means the accused should not be the information content provider or the harmful information in question. Section 230 has been a source of controversy because several courts have interpreted as providing full immunity for ESPs with respect to wrongdoing commitment by their users through their system. Among the cases of law or high points are defamatory information, false information, sexual explicit content, and minors, treats, discrimination, lack of warning. Although experts emphasize that disinformation dissemination is a key issue for Facebook, Twitter, and other social media, since it was reported that the campaigns of the 2016 US elections and the referendum of Brexit were allegedly intervened by the Russian intelligence services. That claim was not confirmed, as was the information of the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. The truth is that in this confrontation, Facebook tries to wash its hands to keep his pedigree inside the digital panoptic, even if on itself weighs the scandal of Cambridge Analytica and the use of data of its user for political purposes.
I don't think that Facebook or internet platforms in general should be arbiters of truth. I think that's a kind of a dangerous line to get down to in terms of deciding what is true and what isn't.
Currently, social media companies are not responsible for the content published by their users. They receive immunity for deleting questionable content, acting as well as selective censors of what they believe is publicized or not. In a long struggle between Washington and Silicon Valley, the Twitter thing is just a grain of sand on the bank of Trump's confrontation from his arrival to power against technological feudals. McCarthyism is a doctrine based on accusations or subversion of disloyal spread that is carried out without respect for the rights of the accused individual and without the development of a fair trial. The concept derives from Joseph McCarthy, Republican political leader of the United States Senate between 1947 and 1957, representing the state of Wisconsin. McCarthy unsubstantiated and accused numerous opponents of the U.S. government, encouraging irregular processes and even the establishment of a blacklist, where according to this, they were communist or Soviet agents infiltrating various spheres of the state and public life. Continue with more science, technology, and innovation at the service of the people. This is Atomum. Now I invite you to learn about the news and research that revolves around the always enigmatic and fascinating universe. From the Jiuquan Center, Chinese Satellite Launch Center launched a new Earth observation satellite. It is the Gaofen 903, a fleet of civil Earth observation satellites developed and launched for the CHIOS State Program or High Definition Land Observation System of China. The satellite will be used mainly in topographical study, urban planning, confirmation of land use right, roadworks design, harvest estimation, as well as disaster prevention and mitigation. The satellite will also provide information for the construction of the Strip and Road Initiative. Lockheed Martin released a video of its most recent test of Orion, the spacecraft that will send astronauts into deep space in NASA's Space Launch System. In early June, he discovered 3 large fairings of service models in the Orion Structural Test article at the company's Waterton Canyon facility near Littleton, Red in the United States. Fairings protect the service model during launch. NASA hopes to launch the Space Launch System on its first test flight, which is estimated to be in early 2021. The telecommunication engineer and writer Philippe Couillou. Virtual reality will allow us to enter and navigate within the image. Before, the image served to transform the world. Now the virtual image is the world. And on the basis of this claim, in China, hospital residents train with virtual reality goggles to practice with COVID-19 patients, where they evaluate skills and learn from their mistakes, without this implying any risk to their health. The pandemic of the new coronavirus has led to innovation becoming a new front to combat the COVID-19, so virtual reality has also been part of the actions to train medical personnel who are on the front line of battle. And although it seems difficult to believe, at the Taipei Hospital Tsuxin in China, resident physicians train with virtual reality goggles to practice with patients' care by COVID-19, evaluate skills and learn from their mistakes without any risk to their health and the patients to be treated. Feel that with practice I can memorize the procedure of the work, and when I treat a real patient I can be more careful with their feelings and focus on their symptoms. It won't stop paying attention to protecting myself. I believe that the use of this training system will allow me to improve the quality of my treatment, focus on my diagnosis, or even the choice of medicines. I won't have to worry about not wearing enough gloves or if I've put my mask inside out. The virtual environment allows medical students to take a medical sample from the patient's throat as if they were a real patient and use the system right-handedly as if it were mastering a video game. Greatest advantage is that the student does not need the physical presence of a teacher. Students just need to know how to use this system, and the system is the teacher. You can learn with this system anytime you want. We can also have a team of 2 or 3 other students to take care of the same patient. I will only need another 2 or 3 games of this device. Then students can learn to take care of the patients at the same time. The alternative of using virtual reality technology allows the progressive learning of medical personnel who work tirelessly at the time when medical services around the world cooperate to treat patients with coronavirus, a palpable display of how innovation is no longer hard to believe when it is put at the service of humanity. The outbreak of the pandemic by the new coronavirus has not only given free rein to a wave of infodemic and an ecosystem of fake news, but laid bare the neglect of neoliberal rulers with their connationals people. Trump tweets to Twitter actions only stop public discussions about whether it is essential to moderate the content of digital social platforms. A study by the journal Science entitled The Dissemination of True and Fake News Online, dated on March 2018. The greater likelihood that people will rethought falsehood more than the truth is what drives the spread of fake news, despite the network and the individual factors that favor truth. Therefore, it is essential to educate the population, especially the users of these digital platforms, to think more critically about what they read, and so we put end to this interesting chapter of Atom. Do not forget to follow us on our accounts. On Twitter, we are at TeleSUR, on Facebook, TeleSUR, and my Twitter is at JackTeleSUR. See you next time, travelers of knowledge.
Y será hasta una nueva travesía cognitiva. Nos vemos en una próxima ocasión, viajeros y viajeras del saber.
September 19, 1983. Declaration of Independence of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Aquí estoy frente a los muros, libre de hablar realidades, de celebrar mis conjuros, de cantar nuestras verdades. Vengo de todas las madres con hijos nunca encontrados. Soy el sueño de mi padre, el de un continente alzado. Yo vine a mostrar los rostros, a nombrarme en tus palabras, para sabernos nosotros, para que el camino abra, a decir lo necesario, de pie junto a mis hermanos, señalar a los contrarios, alzando en puños las manos. Celebro la justa hora de no bajar la mirada, de buscar allí en la aurora nuestra historia liberada. TeleSUR, 15 años al aire, libres.
Follow our latest updates concerning the novel coronavirus by checking our special content in our website, where you will be able to get the most reliable details and numbers for each continent, available from your mobile device or desktop. TeleSUR, connecting the Global South.
Una travesía para descubrirnos. Buscamos conexiones perdidas.
No nos queda otra que luchar, porque no tenemos nada que perder.
Realmente es por todos.
Recorremos el mundo con Reportajes TeleSUR.
Follow the most important global events through a comprehensive perspective. With a team of journalists in 25 locations around the world to convey our people's reality. From the South weekdays, only on TeleSUR.
Who's moving the chessmen? What interests motivate the actors behind each event? The board is deployed there. Critical Move investigates every event from Monday to Friday. Only on TeleSUR.
The Pakistani journalist Tariq Ali examines the mass media influence promoted by imperialism. Get access to the analysis of the socio-economic and political life of the whole South America on our screen and platform in English. A critical place committed to the truth to determine the major events that transform the world today. Mondays, only on TeleSUR.
Innovation, science, the technological breakthrough and its influence in society.
Viajeros del saber, el futuro está aquí.
Atomy. Monday, only on TeleSUR.
In a world infested by inequalities, abuse of power, and injustice, the American journalist Abby Martin covers the struggle for fundamental rights worldwide. Deepen into the search of files which uncover the empire's strategies through our screen and web platform in English. The Empire Files with Abby Martin. Tuesday, only on TeleSUR.
为了保持身体健康，我冥想。
Para mantenerme saludable, yo corro.
To keep myself healthy, I study.
Για να διατηρηθώ υγιής, τρέφομαι σωστά.
Para mantenerme saludable, yo bailo.
Para mantenerme saludable, yo purifico mi espíritu a través del cuerpo. ¿Y tú?
Guide your body. Tuesdays, only on TeleSUR.
Acompañamos a los pueblos que resisten en cada una de sus luchas.
Somos esa ventana que se abre para visibilizarlos entre fronteras.
Thursdays, only on TeleSUR.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Sean todos muy bienvenidos a Vidas. Hay lugares donde el arte se unifica con el orgullo de los pueblos. Y esos lugares están llenos de colores, alegría, pasión, tradiciones, arraigo, valor y entrega.
Real Life. Fridays. Only on TeleSUR.
A review of the world news that investigates, incites analysis, and induces criticism, because every event has a context.
Pusimos el punto en la I.
Dot in the I. Saturdays, only on TeleSUR.
The life is full of moments. Moments of fight. Moments of hope. Moments that transcend. Moments that you can live in. TeleSUR documentaries. Sundays, only on TeleSUR. We share your feelings, exalt your accomplishments, and show your reality. Our approach is global and keeps us in tune with the peoples. Caribbean countries also get our signal. With enthusiasm, we will continue to broadcast for them. Because we are TeleSUR, the news broadcaster from South America and the Caribbean. TeleSUR English presents a weekly program to discuss the political, economic and social issues affecting the Caribbean community. We'll challenge stereotypes and unpack the diversity of the region through the analysis of unique cultures, religions and art. We Caribbean. Wednesdays, only on TeleSUR.
Muka juga unggulan nih mau menunggu begu dekan nih muka kimi ummi alu mudenya nih kotokan homi gudek ma peta nih kotokan nih gudek oh the ungi uri nuku nomana kujita mina kujawi ungula bienu chuno bana jena homba kala ni wa mbigi ndo he ma ubinga kan chulo muninu ouze umbune mara kuna yimwana uyungula mungula uti ambe bero kuba mena uja pemo kama ngono mago sino ipuru kutambo na anaja betira ojuka konjuko haka hanu yaruka na ho mujumu ka ho mudi mena wale kembe apo ndio ngandane ojumu je oh anaja njuri nawa kuna mwana kujita no ulumbu omburu tona mara kuna mwana kujita kunona nombura ayikwa iroko uja tukamu umbu uli kuroro kukonja na kujenge konje he nyinani mihupu
Himbas are semi-nomadic herders who live in both northern Namibia and southern Angola, and nobody knows how long they've been there, but certainly the first evidence of pastoralism, of people keeping cattle and goats, goes back about 2,000 years in Namibia, even older with goats. So perhaps, certainly hundreds of years they've been there.
The geographic situation of Namibia, that is what determines our climate. We are bordered between the two deserts. We have the Kalahari on the east and the Namib on the west. As such, really, we are one of the driest country in the sub-Saharan Africa. So it's our natural inheritance, I must say.
Pese a la dureza climática de Namibia, no todos tienen los mismos problemas de acceso al agua. Frente a las dificultades que afronta el milenario pueblo Himba, a las grandes empresas mineras internacionales que han desembarcado en Namibia, la escasez de agua no les afecta.
Where uranium mines are opening that take incredible amounts of water, and there's not planning for this. So water is going to become a major issue.
Mines, most of them, the private mines, are there to, first and foremost, to make money. And what most of them are trying to do is to go into the community where they are and try to do some social work there. But as you know, these are usually localized in the areas where the mines are, and most of these are from Kaukuland.
Ena kujumbura nahi kairo kolugwa. Na ida mumu no ponamba mwana mubaseraera. Puruide pupe no mia, kapupe ni hodo. Andu yue he pomia kudako okudako lambatero kucha, anda kuda puruide npina pumukada. Hodo kimo na pona pumukada, hodo kimo andi mali kama ndondondo no. Boka pena mia, pena ude. Kuya nahi, to pagi hi ude.
Mbudu to na ndu na munye du ikoka. Oja mi tonjara rio ndu na njimbi akoka.
O manombo o dominante no. Then na okuyenda na masa no bina lombi okutopolo miyango o purwede ndu nenjo o bene ni kutopola pumia waombo purwede ndu nanga heno ndu mabe ongulie mbo be kungula po chirongo chimo namba nahi kutopola pumia purwede ndu mabe apo kuyenda o bina bya ambo abe isapo na muka munyota nji mukala rukuru mara kunda ndu be kungulia mbo nani mumuno kuchanda ni mehindi muno mia gete kimbana ngwali nani wandu barwe nahi wala nganda jibe kumbora panamba wali jima yongulie po yongula bya nani muno mia panamba nuna ngwali nani jiba ya betwale.
Decenas de compañías internacionales explotan el subsuelo de Namibia, uno de los más ricos del planeta. Uranio, diamantes, cobre, oro. La actividad minera supone el 10% del Producto Interior Bruto y el gobierno claramente favorece a estas compañías el acceso al agua. La mina de uranio Rossing, propiedad del gigante Río Tinto, consumió en 2012 7,48 millones de metros cúbicos de agua. Casi la mitad era agua potable y el resto reciclada o desalinizada. Rossing, una de las muchas que operan en Namibia, consumió 3,10 millones de metros cúbicos de agua potable en 2012 frente a los aproximadamente 28.000 metros cúbicos consumidos por toda la población himba de Namibia. Es decir, una sola mina de uranio gasta cada 3 días y medio el equivalente a toda el agua potable que consumen en un año los más de 7.000 himbas. Las enormes diferencias entre el acceso al agua de las compañías mineras y los pueblos primigenios de Namibia no parece ser una cuestión sobre la que quieran hablar las corporaciones. Areva o Río Tinto, dos de las muchas compañías multinacionales contactadas y que operan en Namibia, rechazaron dar su versión o permitirnos el acceso a sus minas o instalaciones.
Kachina puma chikambulire po ombula omanumbu puma yene kuloko ombena na mbena purwede ndulokuja nanga hino chwa hingeza nyanda kwendambo kolwika leno kuya madhe anderengo lipo hinda binambia bide myonye na kuja njombula mairoko katiti ombena na mbena kaino kuyiroko kuyeni thihalie.
La presión bajo la que vive el pueblo himba no solo surge de la dureza del clima, también es legado de un pasado injusto. La vecina Sudáfrica convirtió a Namibia en su colonia a mediados del siglo XX e instauró allí también el régimen racista del apartheid. Durante décadas, el gobierno construyó infraestructuras para la minoría blanca de las ciudades y para sus granjas y relegó al olvido y al atraso a las zonas rurales habitadas por las comunidades negras.
There are definitely historical issues involved there. Before the independence time, there were not much appreciable efforts made to really develop the water resources. 70% of the big farms in Namibia, in the south, which is probably even drier than the north, it's mainly groundwater that is used as a source of water, and those were developed seriously.
Umbra jenga umbra ya ini wanda wenda kala hambu uju kali so ngom kai kana ai kamu kanda mi je umbra jenga ai andu je jin umbra jenga ai ma ku dram ne uju umbra ya kata kali mi ma hodo je bibu mi re bibu ne umbra jenga ko jenga ma kata kamu namu jambo umbra jenga ai ula na hawe jinda yaru mi ngiri bo ngwa wando ku da ko yuru.
It's extremely symbolic in terms of identity but it's also subsistence and a way of life. So cattle are integrally tied up in the Himba economy, and it's hard to imagine Himba without cattle.
Tutonja menuja wina munyo mimbia sawa bombia nanu yaka ina maihi menuja kabina wina mbima biri no hede gitukala ombula hiaro kanawa uli mobidia muno wino wingina mbikwa twanu momitimi ukutimiduli wina mbia nambano mbula jinga ziharo kone wina mbia kabiko wilia kulini oyuli omungu muno uyu mwana waluli menakuja mungu so kujindisa wanyanda kukala omulumindu ngo munyanga ndo mulumindu kujindisa wanyanda nzo na bana jembo obanene dhiyitwa utwa oututa wetu oku mihe kubatira mwachi kumubirira komena kuja muguti omuno bizepe obe batire ko majema na jembo atitimbo omberi wana jomberisa obe obatire ko bana jembo nambano bana jembo ujwa iko hikole omwana umbone hemi mukali munene ngo owami ngumiriso ngombo no mwaji wanje ngumetambo to mulumendu wanje ngombe kale na mundu mulumendu akaliso ngombo ngombe wesa mina kuja wana chiwiri ko hikole.
The Himba community is much more affected simply because their livelihood is dependent on cattle, goats and sheep. Many of them have been killed by the drought. There is no grazing or grass for the livestock. In most cases, the community have to migrate or to move where the grazing is much better. So as a result, the children are very, very much affected by that. Some children, especially boys, to go with them so that they could look after the cattle, especially the cattle. And then to make it difficult for children to attend classes on a regular basis.
It's difficult to give services to the because of their nomadic nature, but the idea is to put up mobile what do you call it, mobile points. But with water, it means you have to drill a borehole, and then they have to move their cattle to that. So it's usually is done together with the people to say, okay, where can you access? But there are definitely challenges.
El pueblo Himba ha conseguido superar cientos de sequías durante miles de años gracias a su sabiduría natural.
It's a very good way of coping, of finding water in places where you wouldn't normally find water, but of course sometimes the holes get too deep and people have been injured with the holes collapsing, but that's not something that happens every day. The Himba are amazingly healthy. I mean, nobody wants to share their water with cattle, and the Himba are quite careful to take their water first.
Y para encontrar agua en las condiciones más adversas, el pueblo Himba ha encontrado un aliado gigantesco.
The elephants know where the underground water is, and people would follow the elephants and find water. One of the ways the Himba are so successful. They're doing exactly what elephants do, and in fact in a real drought situation, the elders will sit around a sacred fire and talk about what they used to do in the past. There's no grazing anywhere where there's water now. Where can we go? And very often they will copy elephant movements because the elephants know where to dig. So there's that symbiosis between wildlife and the Himba.
La cultura Himba se ha adaptado perfectamente a la histórica escasez de agua con la que conviven desde hace siglos. Las mujeres Himba continúan aplicándose un ungüento ocre, que a menudo elaboran los más pequeños, hecho de una mezcla de tierra y grasa aromatizada, que es su forma de tomar una ducha y mantenerse aseadas y perfumadas durante todo el día.
Nitami yotama ke kang. Ehuju mbajanyi. Eva murutu. Ito mujud mbak kewe. Ganga. Mbak ganga ko sa ginanja ko jihanda. Mbak sa ginanja ko jihanda. Ko dar ginanja. Erar. Aguji. Benduk. Ebaba. Ehumi hanganya pamarama. Eho senganya. Eho yujumanya bi. Gwa male. Ko dar yujumanya. Gwenda wuru ga hawa. Ay ka soji. Abe da manganda. Abe ko. Abe baba. Abe sabunji. Abe goji. Abe goji ha. Chime, tawe ko ja, mo kana mo jeri ko. Chungo ha bere. O ko ja oju mo kana. Oju mo ni kana. Chinga aba ni oju mo ni kana. Chinga ya mo no ni mo ni kana. No ga mo no mo ni kana ni. Bomba mbale mbunyi ba.
La sequía, con más de 2 años sin lluvias, está obligando a muchos jimbas a abandonar su hogar e instalarse a las afueras de la ciudad, donde viven en condiciones miserables y pierden contacto con su cultura y tradiciones.
Ya, singirina. Bene munyo wingi bunda bianda mama urumbu no makuteka kwenye imba teka ni kulipa kisa kupangera ngane. Poko ndai manuka ne. Mano handa kulanyi no wina, ije hupira po poka nganda babu pumba tuwa po kambara po ikange. Mbono muno ija eno manbengo mengi poka kwiki, munyi poka baranda. Ohe na muno mu kwiki ungi na ho. Nya ita mu menu ndengo mbanga ya okana.
Dai miam pedago mudim. Mwedi uri bonganda mbo katim. Mbe siere bonganda o migimbe anguno na hiwegu kuroro wegu ningira mwandu muna ningira andu wetu manyi pe unanyi ngitwe ko karuhere go anaki. O ruheba. Kujina mujanga no wa hep. Abo yuwa ngukutura kwanja. Be muna rujo ndo jikana inambi. Abi hembiri mobi wabi he ya ururenye. Wa mwina usi. Kuna jina jimu isama nashi. Bura ka iroko nguno bine he ya tambur. Ya turu mbo he biko. O jinga je duhanga ogisa ne yidwa muna mawuze una.
Ya mono ginuna je. Namu baada ko nungu pe kitumba. Amano nungu kukamu nuna je kukango. Ujo chito gitu ya ndo atumbo wingi. Jana mimi unajinga mau bongo ninge kukamu ya simba ngono kulia nani ngira ngo mimi tara imba ngono kulia ngita ko kulia he na ndile ke imba mkuru imba ngono kuiwa o imba he ni kaka ko na yanya na imba.
Living in slums outside a poor are much worse than being out in the desert and digging for water. The social structure is breaking down, and that is what's disastrous. Not the drought, not the other peripheral issues. That starts with a descent-based authority structure, the head of the lineage and the elders. So to me, that is the greatest threat, that modernization is going to destroy that cohesive social structure that enabled the Himba to prosper in extremely arid and difficult conditions. It's that this closely knit social structure that enabled the Himba to be among the wealthiest cattle herders in Africa, that is starting to break down.
La lucha de los Himba no es solo una lucha contra el clima, sino contra la injusta distribución de los recursos. Pese a la falta de lluvia, el país cuenta con ríos, manantiales y recursos para desalinizar el agua del mar. El pueblo Himba sucumbe a otra lucha. Su vida nómada y ganadera no es tan rentable como las minas de uranio en el sur del país.
They would talk about what a cubic meter of water can or should be able to make. And they will tell you, when you look at a cubic meter of water used in the mines and how much it makes, and you compare it what a cubic meter of water used in crop production or animal production and how much it makes, then it may make economic sense to rather use the water for the mines and not use the water for crop and livestock farming. But I'm actually opposed to that, because for me, food security is a security issue.
And the Himba themselves feel very marginalized. Nomadic people have this problem. I think everywhere in the world, it's easier to do development when a population is sedentary. And the Himba's development needs are different. They should be in control of the development process, not somebody else. And that is something that isn't happening adequately.
El pueblo Himba ha resistido durante siglos en uno de los lugares más inhóspitos del planeta. El calor, la aridez y la sequía no han detenido a una comunidad que basa su fuerza en la solidaridad entre iguales. La modernización y la avaricia de las multinacionales son un nuevo reto para la supervivencia de las futuras generaciones Himba.
Teachers came back mute, wise only about impotence. Without a word, the shield cracked like a child's sudden eminence. Running away from them, to distances, applause oblivious to feelings, it dies upon them, arrogance. It's here again, on the road. Tries a virgin hope, open air for the pain. Today, the room is full of people. Today it is colorful solace. And it goes in the recipe, written slowly to be read clearly. The word is food of the actual patient, of the brother. In their face, hidden as always, they can see it now, remembering the harsh words of the teacher. If crying is the cure, they cry then. There will be no doubt, no fatigue. Sons are joined together morning after morning. There won't be doubt anymore, no more fatigue. Sons are met morning after morning. They snatch every space from death, out of all conviction, the most human. In the end, they will know that all that was learned will be more than useful knowledge. Today, more than ever, life is a witness of how to sort the promise.
Follow the most important global events through a comprehensive perspective. With with a team of journalists in 25 locations around the world to convey our people's reality. From the South, weekdays, only on TeleSUR.
Who's moving the chessmen? What interests and motivate the actors behind each event? The board is deployed there. Critical Move investigates every event from Monday to Friday. Only on TeleSUR.
The Pakistani journalist Tariq Ali examines the mass media influence promoted by imperialism. Get access to the analysis of the socio-economic and political life of the whole South America on our screen and platform in English. A critical place committed to the truth to determine the major events that transform the world today. Mondays, only on TeleSUR.
Follow our program minute by minute. Our signal in audio format is now also available on our website. Get the latest updated facts and news emerging around the world from a Latin American reliable angle. TeleSUR, connecting the global South. Innovation, science, the technological breakthrough and its influence in society.
Viajeros del saber, el futuro está aquí.
Atomy. Monday, only on TeleSUR.
为了保持身体健康，我冥想。
Para mantenerme saludable, yo corro.
To keep myself healthy, I study.
Για να διατηρηθώ υγιής, τρέφομαι σωστά.
Para mantenerme saludable, yo bailo.
Para mantenerme saludable, yo purifico mi espíritu a través del cuerpo. ¿Y tú?
Get your body. Tuesdays, only on TeleSUR.
Acompañamos a los pueblos que resisten en cada una de sus luchas.
Somos esa ventana que se abre para visibilizarlos entre fronteras.
Thursdays, only on TeleSUR. A review of the world news that investigates, incites analysis and induces criticism, because every event has a context.
Pusimos el punto en ahí.
Dot in the eye. Saturdays, only on TeleSUR.
Una travesía para descubrirnos. Buscamos conexiones perdidas.
No nos queda otra que luchar, porque no tenemos nada que perder.
Realmente es por todos.
Recorremos el mundo con Reportajes TeleSUR.
The life is full of moments. Moments of fight. Moments of hope. Moments that transcend. Moments that you can live in. TeleSUR documentaries. Sundays. Only on TeleSUR. TeleSUR English presents a weekly program to discuss the political, economic, and social issues affecting the Caribbean community. We'll challenge stereotypes and unpack the diversity of the region through the analysis of unique cultures, religions, and art. We Caribbean. Wednesdays, only on TeleSUR. We share your feelings, exalt your accomplishments, ensure your reality. Our approach is global and keeps us in tune with the peoples. Caribbean countries also get our signal. With enthusiasm, we will continue to broadcast for them. Because we are TeleSUR, the news broadcaster from South America and the Caribbean.
Welcome to Interviews from Mexico. I'm Laura Carlson, and I'll be your host as we look at cutting-edge issues with the men and women who know them best. Here on TeleSUR. Our guest today has come to the studio literally from the end of the earth. Moira Millán is a Huaychafe, or defender of the Mapuche people. She lives and works in Patagonia, at the southern tip of Argentina and Chile. Hers is a territory of vast expanses of land and some of the most beautiful scenery on earth. But that land and the indigenous peoples who live there are threatened today. Moira, thanks so much for being with us today on Interviews from Mexico.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Moira, I wanted to begin with the fact that in Argentina and in much of the world, there's an impression that there are no more indigenous peoples in Argentina and that practically you don't exist. Let's start by setting the record straight on that. Tell us about the indigenous peoples today in Argentina.
Well, Argentina has always tried to be present a Eurocentric image of itself as and for centuries since the creation of the Argentine state until today, they followed a policy not only of extermination and genocide, but also later a policy of denial. The truth is that there are 36 indigenous nations in Argentina, and that the Mapuche nation is in a location that has geopolitical importance. We're engaged in an important struggle to defend life and territory.
What are some of the principal challenges that your people are facing in Argentina today?
The Mapuche nation is struggling with a lot of difficulties for rights and liberties because we have a racist government, a fascist government that has made hate into the state policy. And they are investing people resources in the repression and death of our people. So in fact, it's very difficult to demand the rights and liberties that we have had already gained. And now, unfortunately, we're seeing some serious setbacks.
Let's talk about one of the specific battles that affects you directly. You live in Chubut, where there's a plan to create a hydroelectric project that would literally flood out your village. What are you doing to respond to that, and is the threat imminent?
They've announced a dam mega project consisting of 6 dams in total in an area of 100,000 hectares. This place is like paradise on earth, and it's really sad. Our community where I live, Lafpillan Mahuiza, would end up under 70 meters of water. We're starting a campaign to defend the river. We're working with slogans like "Not Another River Murdered," organizing different types of meetings to create a coalition between the various sectors that defend the life of rivers. And we're looking into the possibility of filing for an injunction from the court. But, well, the justice system is heavily influenced by the executive, so we don't have a lot of faith in the state's legal apparatus.
You mentioned the phrase a murdered river. How do you conceive of the life of a river within the cosmology of the Mapuche people?
When Mapuche women talk about territorial bodies, we understand that our bodies, our territories, are extensions of our bodies. The Mapuche people believe that there isn't an anthropocentric vision which posits that humans are above all of other species, above other Punewen, the first of nature. The river is very important, just like the forest, the animals, and the human beings. So we think it's insane that they are murdering nature for the benefit of the humans and just an elite group of humans. Every element of our culture is associated with each element of nature. If they kill the rivers, if they silence their voices, they are also silencing the voice of the Mapuche people. As young children, we begin to sing the holy songs. I learned the holy song of the river when I was very little. If they murder the river, if they silence it, the song will also disappear.
You're also a founder of the March of Women of the Original Peoples, a nationwide organization of Indigenous women. How did you become an Indigenous activist?
Well, in reality, I think that I had this unwillingness to conform since I was born, because I was born a woman, I was born indigenous and poor. I saw that there was a very difficult situation of oppression against my mother, my grandmother, women whose territories were stolen from them, who suffered abuse, who were reduced to states of virtual serfdom. Of these stories established themselves in my heart, in my soul, and I decided that I wanted to offer my life to change this reality, a reality that unfortunately still hasn't changed in Argentina. But it seems like there are more and more possibilities to create unity among women who are sick and tired of the humiliation, the contempt, the racism. And we believe that we have enough wisdom and memory to remake a country where living well is a right for all people. Indigenous women have a lot to offer on this revolutionary road.
So the purpose of the organization is to create a context of living well, as the English translation of buen vivir. What are the activities that you're carrying out toward that goal?
First of all, to define living well, because there's a lot of misunderstanding about what we're referring to with that idea. For us, living well is recovering a kind of reciprocity between different peoples and with nature. The first step on this road towards reconstruction of reciprocity is the recognition that we exist, that we are here, that we are pre-existing nations, and we're making a lot of progress in that area. We're also taking back territory because, unfortunately, in the case of the Mapuche people, we live in a paradise that tempts large companies and famous multimillionaires to extend their tentacles into our land, to extract natural resources. And for personal ambition, like those of large landowners. So, living well implies taking back those sacred places which are now behind fences. There are multimillionaires like Ted Turner, like Sylvester Stallone, like Benetton, who think they own the mountains, the rivers and the lakes, and we think that they only own fences. But those mountains, rivers, and lakes are part of the framework for living well for everyone.
Tell us a little bit more about that dynamic. How did these multimillionaires from throughout the world end up in Patagonia, and what's their role in the conflicts that are taking place?
Well, a lot of them started arriving in the 1990s, that decade, when there was also a neoliberal government, like now, that made it possible for these investors, as they call themselves, to come in. They basically auctioned off Patagonia for a ridiculously small amount of money. The cost of taking over thousands and thousands of acres of land was minimal. And we've gotten to the insane point where an Italian company like Benetton owns almost a million hectares.
So they were buying government land?
They were buying lands that in reality belonged to the Mapuche communities, but that we didn't have papers for. The papers that prove that it's her property. But we had been in those places for centuries. So the state didn't recognize our presence and they sold the lands with us inside them. That's what really happened. So these men don't have perfect property rights over our territories, but rather there was a series of irregularities in the process through which they bought the properties. That's why today we are taking down the fences around those territories, recuperating the land, and there are no court orders trying to get rid of us. What we're facing is a repressive policy to exhaust us and get us to leave. With that, I want to explain that the state has to admit that it's responsible for this, that they committed crimes when they handed out these property titles.
The reaction of the state then has been to respond with a policy of permanently harassing the settlements that are recuperating the land that was sold by the state itself. Is that correct?
Exactly. The Mapuche Nation talks about recovering territory rather than occupying territory, because we're taking back territory that we've been part of for millennia. In the Mapuche cosmovision, the idea of private property doesn't exist. The most important element of our concept, of our way of living in this world, is the sacredness of life. So we return to our territory, and when we return, generally, we choose the recoveries strategically. They are places that are threatened by mining mega projects, by fracking, by dams. They are places where we know that if we aren't able to achieve territorial control as the Mapuche people, as people of the land, there are going to be sacrifice zones. In fact, that's what they call them, sacrifice zones. Places that are going to be murdered, destroyed through economic speculation by the elite that governs the world.
Sacrifice zones is the official name that they're giving this? How does it affect your people that this struggle is taking place in two different countries, Argentina and Chile?
The Mapuche Nation is one nation. Our territory is called Wallmapu. It extended from the Pacific to the Atlantic. The Andes Range wasn't a border, but a bridge of unity between Huilimapu, which today is under Chile's administration, and Puelmapu, which is today governed by Argentina. The governments cooperate with each other to repress us. The repression consists not only of militarizing our communities, repressing us with bullets, killing our young people, jailing our traditional authorities. We have hundreds of political prisoners, men and women. But also, the repression consists of smear campaign in the media. They use all of the hegemonic right-wing media outlets that demonize the image of the Mapuche people, justifying the butchery and persecution as if we were terrorists. And in fact, we are described as terrorists. So the border has been completely fortified and it's gotten very dangerous. There are many people in Chile, in the Goluche side, who have their families on the Puelche side, which is in Argentina. And the same thing happens with the Mapuche brothers and sisters on the Chilean side, who have their families on the Argentine side. Now, to cross the way we used to, it's very difficult. There's a lot of controls. For example, if we go to buy medicine, they take our medicine at the border. Now, many of us can't cross to the Chilean side. They deport us back to the Argentine side.
To see your own families. You know, Moira, you're breaking a lot of stereotypes that people might have about what's happening in the Patagonia. And one of those is that these large investments have to do with conservation. And yet you've mentioned fracking, you've mentioned intensive mining and hydroelectric projects. What's the relationship there? Are they for conservation or are they for this type of destructive development?
There are two interesting issues to analyze here. First, the fact that the Patagonia has a lot of water, fresh water. Even in the desert areas, there have been discovered that there is a significant, huge underground aquifer. They say it's the third largest in the world. Also, the ice fields, we have glaciers there. And the mining companies need large quantities of water, just like fracking, to be able to operate. On the other hand, the large estates represent another kind of threats that has to do with the fact that there are areas that are not going to be sacrifice zones, but are going to be conservation zones. That's where the supposed investment for the preservation of nature comes in. And they're going to be a kind of transmodern feudal lords, so to speak. Then, when the planet starts to collapse because of climate change, they are going to have a part of the planet where they'll be able to go, where they still have fresh water. There will still be forests, so those feudal lords are going to have the power of life and death over humans, who they allow to come into their estates.
So we're talking about a survival plan for the super rich in Patagonia.
Exactly, something like that. So some regions will be zoned to be part of this outrageous feudal project for the rich and famous. And then there will be other zones that are going to be sacrificed to continue feeding the voracious capitalism that is killing the planet.
In this dynamic, what's the role of the governments in terms of how they're responding to protect what should be their own natural resources?
The government's role has been completely complicit in these actions, which are really part of the corporate rule. The governments have been puppets, I could almost say hitmen, at the service of these large transnational that operate in Patagonia all across Argentina.
You were here in Mexico to attend the first international gathering of women who organize. That was held in Zapatista territory. At that gathering, there were thousands of women who came from throughout the world, including a large number of indigenous women. Did you find that your people are facing some of the same threats as indigenous women in other parts of the world?
I had the good fortune to participate in the Zapatista gathering, the international gathering of women who struggle, and it was wonderful to be able to meet with women from all over the world who are taking part in key movements to preserve life, and also to understand how the transnational corporations and the world governments are carrying out a systematic strategic plan against life and territories and against the peoples. It was very useful for me to listen to the sisters and try to understand what's happening in other parts of the world, because now the Argentine government, led by Mauricio Macri, wants to import this as models to use against us in southern Argentina and across the country. I think that there is a large laboratory of terror that overlaps with democracies, with democratic governments, but there are really terrorist states that receive a packet of policies that include strategies they have to implement to neutralize this grassroots resistance. It was a very interesting experience. There were many lessons, a lot of teaching and learning by just listening to the sisters.
You faced the problem of being isolated in your struggles, and there's really very little information, accurate information, that has come out about the Patagonia. Do you think that there's a possibility of creating more linkages among people who are facing the same kinds of threats, so that these battles can be more broadly known and understood?
Definitely, yes. I think that it is possible to break the geographic walls that exist because we're dispersed geographically, and to break the media walls that demonize us and spread disinformation. I think that the social media helps a lot, and these gatherings, like the one the Zapatista sisters organized, help too. They allow us to tell the truth about what's really happening outside our territories too. And I think that it is vitally important and necessary and possible to create a global network of peoples who are struggling for life. Because now we understand that what we are experiencing locally is connected to these global policies. So we have to see how we are going to connect with each other to create strategies that will help us succeed together. it's also important to point out that we weren't always losing. There are struggles that we have won, and if we're mapping all this resistance, in addition to the pain of hardships we've felt as people, we also have reason to be happy because the struggles we've won. And sometimes, of course, our enemies don't want us to remember that part.
What are some of the next steps for your movement in defense of land and territory and water in the Patagonia, Argentina?
With the Indigenous Women's March, we are planning the creation of an Indigenous Women's Parliament on April 21st and 22nd of this year. And then in October, we have a big gathering, around 60,000 or 80,000 women who are coming to this meeting that's held every year in Argentina. But this is the first time that we as Indigenous women are proposing, through the voice of the Mapuche women who are hosting the gathering, we're going to propose that the gathering be a plurinational gathering of women, and through that we hope to show that the parts of Argentina that deny our existence, that indigenous peoples are here and raise our political demands. Most important for self-determination.
In Argentina, there's no recognition within the Constitution like there is now in many other countries, including in a very limited way here in Mexico, of the plurinational character of the country at all?
Not explicitly like that. Article 75 of the Constitution does recognize the existence, or rather the pre-existence, of indigenous peoples. That is, it recognizes that we're here before the nation state invaded. But there's no recognition of the current situation, no recognition that there are plurinational territories, and that we are putting a country or a state on top of these territories. Unfortunately, that doesn't exist. They only recognize the pre-existence that we were there before the creation of the state. So it's a difficult issue that we need to work on, and we're going to do that in different ways, not just reflecting, producing historical and intellectual material for reflection, but also taking down fences, recovering territories, confronting the mining companies, the petroleum companies, the dams, because we believe that there's no time to waste. The planet won't get another chance. The time to defend life is now.
Moira Millán, thanks so much for being with us here on Interviews from Mexico and talking about this critical issue. And thank you for joining us. We'll be back next week on Interviews from Mexico.
September 19, 1983. Declaration of Independence of St. Kitts and Nevis.
And finally, the door will open. I'll be able to pick up like I did before. I'll be able to see you without a pixel between us. And I'll talk without end all the afternoon. I'll tell you my plan during these 40 days. I'll tell you how much I hated not touching you. And after finishing the story, reviewing videos and messages, I want to tell you, honey, something even bigger. It took me so long to realize that we're losing time, moments, that the simple things are victories, and other things are not necessary. I've ever seen the fear in between kings roar with their moguls, their determination in defending their fortunes, stacking patience in front of shelves. These screens that don't hide anything, leave us naked. That is why, honey, today I tell you, before everything falls tomorrow, after the quake, we don't be the same. The form, arguments, and the way of understanding, the manners, we will be creatures, not peoples. If we make of these deaths an awakening, we will live once again big dreams to love people. And no more isolation in these poor lives with our phones. That is my news, honey. Awakening.
como la que ustedes van a librar, como la que va a librar este ejército armado de lápices y de cartillas, no se ha librado nunca.
Por eso era especialmente hermoso, ¿no? Darse cuenta de que lo que uno estaba haciendo era una ayuda, ¿no? Era una ayuda a la gente, que era muy necesario.
Follow our program minute by minute. Our signal in audio format is now also available on our website. Get the latest updated facts and news emerging around the world from a Latin American reliable angle. TeleSUR, connecting the global south.
Follow the most important global events through a comprehensive perspective. With a team of journalists in 25 locations around the world to convey our people's reality. From the South. Weekdays. Only on TeleSUR. The Pakistani journalist Tariq Ali examines the mass media influence promoted by imperialism. Get access to the analysis of the socio-economic and political life of the whole South America on our screen and platform in English. A critical place committed to the truth to determine the major events that transform the world today. Mondays. Only on TeleSUR. In a world infested by inequalities, abuse of power, and injustice, the American journalist Abby Martin covers the struggle for fundamental rights worldwide, deepening into the search of files which uncover the empire's strategies through our screen and web platform in English. The Empire Files with Abby Martin. Tuesday, only on TeleSUR.
为了保持身体健康，我冥想。
Para mantenerme saludable, yo corro.
To keep myself healthy, I study.
Για να διατηρηθώ υγιής, τρέφομαι σωστά.
Para mantenerme saludable, yo bailo.
Para mantenerme saludable, yo purifico mi espíritu a través del cuerpo. ¿Y tú?
Get your body. Tuesdays, only on TeleSUR.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Sean todos muy bienvenidos a Vidas. Hay lugares donde el arte se unifica con el orgullo de los pueblos. Y esos lugares están llenos de colores, alegría, pasión, tradiciones, arraigo, valor y entrega.
Real Life. Fridays. Only on TeleSUR.
Una travesía para descubrirnos. Buscamos conexiones perdidas.
No nos queda otra que luchar, porque no tenemos nada que perder.
Realmente es por todos.
Recorremos el mundo con Reportajes TeleSUR.
The life is full of moments. Moments of fight. Moments of hope. Moments that transcend. Moments that you can live in. TeleSUR documentaries. Sundays. Only on TeleSUR. TeleSUR English presents a weekly program to discuss the political, economic, and social issues affecting the Caribbean community. We'll challenge stereotypes and unpack the diversity of the region through the analysis of unique cultures, religions, and art. We Caribbean. Wednesdays. Only on TeleSUR. Follow our latest updates concerning the novel coronavirus by checking our special content in our website, where you will be able to get the most reliable details and numbers for each continent, available from your mobile device or desktop. TeleSUR, connecting the Global South.
Venezuelan authorities call a recent UN report on human rights biased. 4 political parties are suspended in Ecuador ahead of next year's elections. And tens of thousands mobilize in Thailand to demand sweeping reforms. Hello and welcome to TeleSUR. I'm Doris Polo in Quito, Ecuador, and this is From the South. Venezuelan authorities have lambasted a report issued by the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights centered on the Bolivarian Republic. Among the issues, the government says the so-called experts never visited Venezuela nor reached out to any authorities.
These so-called experts issued a report. They did not come to Venezuela because, from the first day, we advised the UN Human Rights Council, very diplomatically, that we were already working with a particular resolution, and the Venezuelan state is coherent and consistent with all political positions. There is a team working on this topic already via the High Commissioner's office, and we will not recognize a biased and weaponized report. They are using this report as a weapon against us, in order to politicize human rights. We are not going to play that game.
Foreign Minister Jorge Arreaza also spoke about the intended goal of this report and how it plays into the warmongering strategy of the U.S. administration.
The mercenaries that were sent here in April wanted to kill President Maduro. They wanted to kill the head of the National Constituent Assembly, Diosdado Cabello. They wanted to kill the ministers of Justice, of the Interior, among others. That is what this report seeks now as well, the ethical murder of our leaders. But they will fail, and this is all done just as Mike Pompeo is visiting Latin America. Our neighboring countries are hosting this tour, which seeks to threaten our nation, a Trump campaign strategy to win votes in the state of Florida. This is evident. We had been warned that this panel of alleged experts was preparing to issue a report, but it is unbelievable to see over 400 pages released, and they never once came to Venezuela or spoke with any authority. It is irresponsible. The report is a fraud and serves as nothing but war propaganda.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is in Colombia for an official visit. Pompeo met with President Ivan Duque at the presidential palace to discuss topics including the situation in Venezuela and the supposed war on drugs being led by the Colombian government. Meanwhile, the Bolivarian Republic has denounced Pompeo's Latin tour as part of an ongoing strategy to destabilize the nation. Pompeo's latest tour started in South America on Thursday when he visited Suriname and Guyana. He then traveled to Brazil before heading to Colombia. And on Friday, protesters in Brazil gathered against the visit of the U.S. Secretary of State. Demonstrators mobilized in front of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, calling Pompeo's meeting with Venezuelan migrants a cynical move. Meanwhile, Workers' Party President Gleisi Hoffmann pointed out that the administration of President Jair Bolsonaro has once again shown its submission to the policies of the United States. In Ecuador, the National Electoral Council has eliminated 4 political organizations alleging irregularities during the registration process. Let's take a closer look.
This week, the National Electoral Council eliminated the Social Commitment Party, the Podemos Party, the Social Justice Party, and the Libertad es Pueblo Party.
What we see is a biased National Electoral Council. Before this decision, I thought the council was under pressure, but no. The Electoral Court is complicit in the destruction of democracy in the country.
In the face of repeated attempts to prevent the participation of the Citizens Revolution Party in the upcoming elections and the disqualification of the candidates of former President Rafael Correa, journalist Carlos Raspaco was chosen as the new vice presidential candidate by the Democratic Center Party.
We need to start believing that better times are ahead. We have to start building a society that safeguards well-being, a society that respects rights, and that recovers independent justice, without interfering in any political process and without persecution.
Rabasco is a well-known opinion journalist specialized in economic issues. In 2016, the National Confederation of Ecuadorian Journalists designated him as the best interviewer for Ecuadorian television.
We dream of an Ecuador with territorial equity, with social inclusion. We dream of an Ecuador under the protection of social justice. The anguish and the desperation felt by 17 million Ecuadorians will soon come to an end.
Without a final budget approved and with growing delays, the National Electoral Council approved general elections to be held on February 7, 2021.
In other news, a tropical storm warning is in effect for Bermuda as the island braces for inclement weather due to Hurricane Teddy. Teddy is forecast to move east of the British Overseas Territory late on Sunday or Monday, just 4 days after being battered by Hurricane Paulette. Teddy, a Category 4 storm, is not currently posing a direct threat. It is expected to transition to a powerful post-tropical cyclone as it moves near or over portions of Atlantic Canada early next week. Large swells produced by Teddy are expected to affect portions of the Leeward Islands, the Greater Antilles, the Bahamas, and the east coast of the U.S. Meanwhile, in the southernmost part of the Caribbean, Trinidad and Tobago is reeling from the effects of Hurricane Teddy. Local meteorologists say the country has been hit by thunder showers and flooding due to convective activity associated with Teddy. Conditions are continuing to gradually improve. Now, Jamaican Carnival organizers have decided to forego the annual road march and related activities until April 11, 2021. This was revealed by the Jamaica Ministry of Tourism on Friday. According to the release, all of the bands and fetes will honor tickets and costumes purchased in 2020 for the 2021 staging. This move supports preventative measures introduced by the government to control the unnecessary exposure of citizens and visitors to COVID-19. A revised calendar, including all the major fetes, will follow in the coming days. The country's carnival was initially postponed by 6 months to October as a safety measure. We'll take a short break now. Don't go away.
A review of the world news that investigates, incites analysis, and induces criticism, because every event has a context.
Pusimos el punto en la I.
Dot in the eye. Saturdays, only on TeleSUR.
TeleSUR English presents a weekly program to discuss the political, economic, and social issues affecting the Caribbean community. We'll challenge stereotypes and unpack the diversity of the region through the analysis of unique cultures, religions, and art. We Caribbean. Wednesdays, only on TeleSUR.
Bolivia's de facto president, Janine Áñez, pulled out from the October elections earlier this week in hopes of giving the right wing a boost against the Movement Towards Socialism party. We have more in this report.
After the publishing of a latest poll to show that the Movement Towards Socialism party is well on its way to win a first-round victory during October's elections, the de facto president removed her name from the race.
I am setting aside my candidacy for president in order to safeguard democracy. This is not a sacrifice, it's an honor. I do this despite the risk it could further split the vote and lead to a mass victory in October.
The candidate said to benefit the most from the decision is Carlos Mesa, who has remained in second place in most polls. The right wing hopes to strengthen his platform, hoping to force a run of votes.
We salute the president's decision to drop out. We believe this will allow any of our potential voters to place their hopes on a candidate that has a chance to beat the left wing.
But the leading party has said this strategy is doomed to fail.
De ninguna manera nos afecta ni nos beneficia, ¿no?
This doesn't affect us, nor does it benefit. It's simply a decision they took.
There are shortages everywhere, of fuel, of medicine, of food. There are protests nationwide against price hikes. There are too many topics that the right has left by the wayside.
The Electoral Court has said they have not yet received any official document in regards to Áñez's withdrawal. As such, the question remains on whether only Áñez is dropping out or if her entire alliance is disbanding.
Political parties had the chance to substitute a candidate until September 3. After that date passed, a candidate may drop out, but the parties they represented cannot nominate a new candidate.
But the Juntos alliance has clarified they will remain in the race. With Áñez's exit, the right wing is down to 6 candidates to face off against Luis Arce, the candidate for the MAS party.
The president of Peru survived an impeachment vote late on Friday. Martín Vizcarra was accused by members of Congress of inciting aides to lie to anti-graft investigators. This in turn led to the impeachment proceedings. After a 10-hour debate, only 32 legislators voted for his dismissal, while 78 voted against and 15 abstained.
In the last 8 days, we have put aside all the people who are in bad financial situation, who have businesses collapsing and debts for medical clinics, and who have health problems. We have put them aside for 8 days because of everything that has happened this week and because of what we have done as authorities. What we have to do from now is to resume the work based on an agenda in favor of the people.
Guatemalan President Alejandro Giammattei has tested positive for COVID-19. In revealing the news, Giammattei said he would continue his work from home while self-isolating. He also ordered all members of his cabinet and the Vice President Guillermo Castillo to be tested for the virus. Meanwhile, the Minister of Culture also contracted the viral respiratory illness. Guatemala has so far reported over 83,000 COVID-19 cases and more than 3,000 deaths. In Chile, Mapuche indigenous communities are demanding that the government hand over Guafo Island, an ancestral territory that has been put on sale. The island has over 70 kilometers of coastline and is the habitat of unusual flora and fauna. It allegedly belongs to the nephew of Pinochet's former economy minister and is listed for sale at $20 million. Environmentalists have also joined demands to stop the sale of the territory, considered a holy site for Mapuches. A recent report on human rights violations in Colombia shows that female social leaders face greater danger than most others, as they are often the target of murder, sexual violence, and forced displacement.
Between 2013 and 2019, over 1,300 violent attacks were recorded against women social leaders, and 84 of them were killed. while over 1,000 received threats. These numbers were reported by an NGO, which also says this highlights structural violence in the country.
We are seeing an increase in social-political violence against those who defend human rights, particularly in the case of women. Women are also stigmatized in the territories, and as a consequence, it leads to violence and human rights violations.
The risk for them is greater due to their gender, race, and ethnicity. They face threats, homicides, sexual violence, and forced displacement.
To be a social leader to me means suffering in my own skin, the physical and emotional aggressions. We live in fear. We don't know what will happen to our children if we are not here tomorrow.
This report is being presented at a time when the defense of human rights is costing many Colombians their lives, and at a time when numerous violations of human rights have been recorded at the hands of the police.
They pulled me off the motorcycle by my hair. They started to electrocute me then, with the TeleSUR. They took all of my belongings, my cell phone too. They then locked me in a cell with 11 men.
The outlook continues to be uncertain as impunity remains in place. In 7 years, there have only been 4 convictions for the hundreds of homicides, while a majority of cases remain in the investigation phase.
In Africa now, the Somalian president and regional leaders have agreed on revising the model for the nation's upcoming elections. According to the new model, civil society leaders and regional authorities will select delegates from each state who will then elect representatives to parliament. The new agreement revises a previous plan reached last month and which was later rejected by other regional leaders. It also comes just hours after the appointment of Mohamed Hussein Roble as the new prime minister. Ethiopia has filed terrorism charges against a prominent media mogul and opposition politician from the Oromo ethnic group, Jawar Mohammed. Jawar, founder of the Oromia Media Network and a member of the Oromo Federalist Congress Party, was arrested in June amid widespread unrest that followed the assassination of a popular Oromo musician. According to the Attorney General's office, Jawar and 22 other activists, including opposition leader Bekele Garba, face charges relating to the violation of anti-terrorism laws, telecom fraud laws, and firearms laws. Libyan military leader Khalifa Haftar has agreed to lift the months-long blockade on oil fields and ports, which were under the control of the Libyan National Army.
We have decided to resume oil production and exports under certain conditions and with necessary measures that will guarantee a fair distribution of revenues and that they will not be used to support terrorism.
Former presidential guard from the Central African Republic, Eric Danboy Bagale, has been arrested in France for alleged war crimes. He is accused of leading a group of largely Christian anti-Black militias who are alleged to have carried out revenge killings after the country's president was ousted in 2013. Bozize was already under sanctions by the United Nations for his role in supporting the Christian militias. South African health authorities reported over 2,000 new COVID-19 cases on Friday, taking the total number to over 657,000. The Minister of Health noted that the number of COVID-19 tests conducted has surpassed 4 million, placing South Africa first on the continent as it relates to testing. Meanwhile, 85 people have died from the novel coronavirus in one day, pushing the cumulative number of fatalities to over 15,800. The nation ranks 9th in the world in terms of confirmed coronavirus cases. With that, we're taking one last break. Stay where you are.
We share your feelings, exalt your accomplishments, and show your reality. Our approach is global and keeps us in tune with the peoples. Caribbean countries also get our signal. With enthusiasm, we will continue to broadcast for them. Because we are TeleSUR, the news broadcaster from South America and the Caribbean.
Welcome back. Tens of thousands took to the streets of Thailand's capital demanding political reform. The protesters have been taking to the streets since July, calling for the resignation of Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha and a complete overhaul of the government. The demonstrators defied a ban on public gatherings that was implemented to stem the spread of COVID-19. They are also calling for fresh elections and a new constitution.
The current government staged a coup to obtain power and has taken away the people's rights. I'm here because I want those rights back.
There's a chance we will succeed, but how successful we can be? We'll have to wait and see. If the protesters are still committed to fixing the constitution, then the government won't be able to ignore them forever.
2 people have died and 1 is missing after Hurricane Ianos swept over western Greece. Emergency workers are also searching for a boat carrying 55 migrants in the Mediterranean Sea after it sent a distress signal due to the storm. Hundreds of people have been evacuated from their houses in some parts of the capital. The storm also affected Greece's western islands, resulting in flights and other transport services being cancelled. Shifting gears now, dozens of tourist guides staged a peaceful protest behind Paris' Notre Dame Cathedral to call on the French government for financial aid. They lamented that nearly half of the city's tour guides have been unable to work and urgently need financial assistance. The coronavirus pandemic has negatively impacted the country's tourism industry due to travel restrictions and lockdowns imposed to halt the spread of the virus.
Some of the profession are independent, which means they have access to a solidarity fund. That's good until December. But the big problem is we need urgent financial aid for those who have zero income now, and that is to say about 41% of the profession. There's about 200 of us here today, and non-stop since June we've been demonstrating, we've written letters, we have no reply, so we're trying to attract the attention of the government to help these people, and to at least call this year null and void, and that this year is written off, and that people can again apply for unemployment benefit until the work comes back next year, because it won't come back until next year. So we need really money to survive until next year.
Speaking of protests, in the United States, New York City school teachers have demonstrated against the reopening of schools. The teachers are against in-person classes due to resume in the next few weeks, fearing this could result in the rapid spread of the COVID-19 virus. City authorities have insisted that schools can reopen safely and have assured that safety measures shall be put in place.
Until there's a plan, I'm not walking into no school building. If there's a job offer where I can do it remotely, then I'm fine. I keep my son safe. I keep my mom, who is of age, safe. That plays a factor as well. If my son goes back to his school, I don't know if his schools are going to follow the right protocol. And then it's like, I don't know what my job may expect of me.
In some sad news, U.S. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the second woman to be appointed to the Supreme Court, passed away at the age of 87 in Washington, D.C. on Friday. Judge Ginsburg was battling pancreatic cancer. She was appointed to the legislative body by President Bill Clinton in 1993, where she served for more than 27 years. Ginsburg was known as an advocate for women's rights, including the right to have abortions, and for the passage of the Equal Rights Amendment. Her death, while still serving on the court, has created a rare election year opportunity for President Donald Trump to nominate a Republican replacement. Her dying wish was that her position remains vacant until after the elections. However, the U.S. president tweeted that he intends to nominate a replacement for RBG. He said, "We were put in this position of power and importance to make decisions for the people who so proudly elected us, the most important of which has long been considered to be the selection of United States Supreme Court justices. We have this obligation without delay." And with that, we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. For our viewers in Africa, remember you can find us on StarSat channel 461 in South Africa and channel 539 in Nigeria. And join us on social media. For TeleSUR English, I am Doris Polo. Thank you for watching.
September 19, 1983. Declaration of Independence of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Who's moving the chess man? What interests motivate the actors behind each event? The board is deployed there. Critical move. Investigates every event from Monday to Friday. Only on TeleSUR.
The Pakistani journalist Tariq Ali examines the mass media influence promoted by imperialism. Get access to the analysis of the socio-economic and political life of the whole South America on our screen and platform in English. A critical place committed to the truth to determine the major events that transform the world today. Mondays. Only on TeleSUR.
Innovation, science, the technological breakthrough and its influence in society.
Viajeros del saber, el futuro está aquí.
Atomy. Monday, only on TeleSUR.
Una batalla como la que ustedes van a librar, como la que va a librar este ejército armado de lápices y de cartillas, no se ha librado nunca.
Por eso era especialmente hermoso, ¿no? Darse cuenta de que lo que uno estaba haciendo era una ayuda, ¿no? Era una ayuda a la gente, que era muy necesario.
The Pakistani journalist Tariq Ali examines the mass media influence promoted by imperialism. Get access to the analysis of the socio-economic and political life of the whole South America on our screen and platform in English. A critical place committed to the truth to determine the major events that transform the world today. Mondays. Only on TeleSUR. A review of the world news that investigates, incites analysis and induces criticism, because every event has a context.
Pusimos el punto en la I.
Dot in the I. Saturdays. Only on TeleSUR.
Una travesía para descubrirnos. Buscamos conexiones perdidas.
No nos queda otra que luchar, porque no tenemos nada que perder.
Realmente es por todos.
Recorremos el mundo con Reportajes TeleSUR.
TeleSUR English presents a weekly program to discuss the political, economic and social issues affecting the Caribbean community. We'll challenge stereotypes and unpack the diversity of the region through the analysis of unique cultures, religions and art. We Caribbean. Wednesdays, only on TeleSUR.
Hello, welcome to the critical move of TeleSUR. A double blow to democracy in Latin America. This is how have been seen the disqualification of former presidents Evo Morales from Bolivia and Rafael Correa from Ecuador to be measured in the next elections scheduled in those countries. What's behind it? Who is pulling the strings of the so-called judicialization of politics against progressivism in the region? Who is offering to be an accomplice either by keeping a deathly silence or by promoting manipulated processes, lacking evidence and with a media conglomerate that it is in charge of magnifying alleged crimes that in reality are no more than mere tricks? Let's deploy the board. We're just beginning. Last Monday, September 7th, Magistrate Alfredo Jaimes Terrazas of the 3rd Constitutional Chamber of Bolivia determined that former President Evo Morales was disqualified from running as a candidate for the Senate for the Department of Cochabamba for the Movement Towards Socialism in the elections of next October 18th, because he does not reside in that country. On the same day, a court of cassation of the National Court of Justice of Ecuador issued a sentence that definitively annuls the possibility of the candidacy of former President Rafael Correa for the vice presidency of the country for the Citizens' Revolution movement. After the actions come the reactions. I also propose that you listen to statements that have remained in that history of the so-called warfare. There is no bribe, right? At most, there will be a traffic of influence of Pamela Martinez, who used her own company and asked Odebrecht for money. But it is the regional strategy of lawfare. They catch a guilty person, but we are going to get you 20 years. They did the same with Chicaiza, who just announced about the case in Argentina and published it in the corrupt Ecuadorian press. When he accused me without knowing that as a president I can call him and order a telephone kidnapping, and that they threw the phone away and has no proof it was published in all the newspapers. Now what he does say? That they forced him, that they threatened to imprison him for years. If he didn't accuse me, that we may lose. In those circumstances, they accuse anyone because it is the strategy that they have used against Lula, against Evo, against Cristina, against me, against George Glass. The prostitution of a figure that is called effective or rewarded delation.